Welcome to the Visual Cast, coming at you from California. I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, crystals, alien downloads, spirituality, and catalysts. It's essentially a massive nerd out. But the guests also do a set where we dive into their computer and get an up-and-close look at how they make art, how they perform art, or really anything they want to share with us. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. To support us, please like and subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and leave us a review on Spotify. Now, without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
For this episode today, I'm joined by a super awesome and extremely talented, mind-bending visual artist, and I am really excited and intrigued to get to know him and find out more about him. So, welcome to the podcast, Luke Munoz, Mind Balloon.
Yo, what's up, guys?
How's it going? Look at that! Look at
Good,
Luke's
man.
little setup over there. We got his visuals in the background. Man, sick. So I want to get right into it, and I usually start off with a scripted question. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to get into more of a conversation.
Cool.
Luke, I've been following your work for a bit now, and I'm so impressed by your ever-evolving and upgrading skills. It's super inspiring to watch your journey, and I honestly get excited when you post new visuals. Your visuals have been played at some massive festivals by some of our mutual friends and killer VJs, and recently you were part of the holograms at the renowned Halloween in Florida. Needless to say, your talent and skills are being observed and loved. Your style of geometric, mind-bending symmetry mixed with organic and natural flowing psychedelia is top-notch, and really my favorite aesthetic. To then learn that you're using my favorite DCC blender, I knew we had to have you on the podcast. So to start things off, looking back on your first animation and then looking at your most recent animation, how does it feel to see the stark difference? And do you notice the massive growth you have achieved?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. I just want to say I appreciate the kind words. But yeah, it's been a long journey. Like, it's been an interesting journey learning how to do like the kind of stuff you're saying up here. And yeah, I mean, I started just messing around with After Effects and just kind of messing around stuff, and we can kind of get into like how I started doing visuals. But it's kind of blows my mind sometimes when I look at some of these renders that I'm making, man. It's like, holy crap, I made that. You know, it really does. It's bizarre and how it just flows out of me now. Yeah, I love it, man. This stuff's so awesome. Fun to make. It's so fun.
Yeah, your stuff is like I mean, we definitely should just give a look at it while we're going here. Mm-hmm. Your stuff is so intriguing because it's like it's kind of this, and when I say this, I mean this with the utmost respect. It's kind of like this natural, this like kind of classic psychedelic vibe, but it's like got this super polished like 3D kind of visual effect in it, which I appreciate a lot because I also just love 3D. But it just has this like, another thing that I love, this like organized chaos. It's like so many things, so much things are happening. There's so much movement going on, but there's also like a really strong focal point. There's a really strong like, idea of what's happening. Nice.
Yeah, I love that one. That's one of my favorites I've made recently.
Hell yeah. And it's just awesome. I'm super excited to hear a little bit more how you make this stuff. And, like you said, like it blows your mind that you're making this stuff. I mean, is it a lot of experimentation, or do you have like an idea of where you're going?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of processes that I like, regurgitate a lot. And not, I don't know if regurgitate's a word, but I have a lot of things that I've kind of developed, and it's it's definitely like, like a lot of my colors, I use a lot of the same, you know, uh, and like I go for like I try to make things as like organic as possible, but I love
Mm,
having that kind of technology kind of organic is kind of usually what I'm going for a lot.
mm,
And you can see that in a lot of my renders. I use a lot of waves. Like I'm obsessed with wave patterns and like different how a four like a four rotating like a 16 rotating wave in reverse and how those like play with each other. And like I'll
interesting.
definitely we're gonna dig into some of my Blender files and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about with that. But um, it's yeah, it's interesting, man. Like sometimes like I poke around in the dark a lot. I'm totally self-taught. I didn't go to school for any of this stuff, so a lot of
Nice.
how I make stuff is just twisting knobs
It's
and
trial and
turning
error.
things and
Yeah.
doing this and trial and error. It's definitely a lot of that. But now I have
Look
an
at
eye
that.
for
That's
it.
sick.
It's like if something's like not working, okay, let's try
You'll just
this or
try
let's
something
try
else.
this,
Yeah.
method or try this method, and most of the time I can like now it's gotten to the point where I sit down in front of my computer and in an hour or two I can, make something crazy like that,
That's
which blows
awesome.
my mind. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I remember one of the first, because you're pretty viral, but one of the first animations
Mm,
that popped up in my feed was like it was one like, not this one specifically, but somewhat similar, like a lot of particles,
mhm.
like particles in this like very interesting kind of like shift in shape. I guess they're not particles, like iterations or something.
Yeah.
But it was circles, and like one of the animations was like the roughness and metallic was changing as it was going further
Oh
from the
yeah.
camera, and I and
I
I
love doing
noticed
that.
and
Mhm.
I think I even wrote a thing and you like wrote back a comment or something and I was like, oh, this guy
Yeah.
knows what's up. Like he's like, play. It's like such a subtle thing that
Totally.
most people
Yeah.
not like that I'm seeing it and I paid attention to it. It's just like more of like, oh, that's like part of the effect. Like that's part of
Mm.
what makes this thing cool is that like this shifting kind of like change in the material, which I thought was so was just a nice fresh of breath air. It's
Yeah.
just like a nice use of kind of this cool shifting kind of
Oh,
pattern
for
thing.
sure. Yeah. And I've noticed in like, a lot of the
Man,
people
this
that
is
I look
sick.
up to, like a lot of the subtlety is what gives it that edge, that makes it really pop. And like finding those subtleties and like I use a lot of like lights that'll like slowly shift from like a
Mm.
blue to a green to an
Oh, cool.
orange. And like it's very subtle. And if you're not looking for it, you're not gonna see it. But it's if I turn it off, it's very obvious it's not there, you know. And
Man,
the
this
same
one's
thing with like
sick.
a lot of my movements and stuff. I'll layer different, different slight movements to like so the whole thing is shifting up and shifting down very
Mm.
slowly, but also with the wave, patterns of everything else. It's again very subtle, but like it just gives it that pop.
Mm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, your stuff definitely pops. I would say that without
I
a doubt.
appreciate that.
It's very
I
poppin'.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Um, so let's jump into a little bit, where you come from and kind
Okay.
of how you've got to where you are. You grew up in Arizona. Give us a little bit about that. What was it like growing up in Arizona? And was there anything that shifted you into this path that you're on now as an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Phoenix is dope, man. I like Phoenix a lot. It's a cool place. We have a pretty thriving music scene here. I feel like we've always got the runoff of, LA and Denver, and we always get all the people coming through here. And um, I kind of started doing visuals. So I've always been a musician my whole life.
Oh,
And
cool.
I play everything. I play guitar, piano, drums. I can, if there's an instrument, I've probably
No
learned how to
way,
play a song
really?
on
That's
it.
so
And
cool.
yeah, but I never really felt like it was like flowing out of me. I always
Mm.
felt like I was like when I was started producing music, using Ableton and like all that. Like I always felt like I was banging my head against my MIDI controllers trying to get something out of me, and like I never made something that I was like proud to show people. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And like
Interesting.
I don't know, and I just love music so much that uh like I wanted to like be a part of it and stuff, but I never felt like I was good enough or like and like years ago we used to throw these crazy Halloween parties at this house I was living in, and we would always set up like this massive haunted house to like come through into the party. And one year like I had an idea to do these like I forgot where I saw it. I saw it online somewhere. It was like a projection map thing where it looked like people were like coming through like
Through the
plastic.
wall. Yeah.
Yeah. So like we had this like plastic sheeting, and we had an
Nice.
old projector, and
Hell yeah.
I've like found like some videos that looks like it's coming through the plastic, and I set up this big projection map thing, and like I had to figure out how to run it. So of course I found Resolume, and like don't tell anybody, but I pirated that first one. And I'm not proud of it. I own it now,
Everybody.
but yeah, so like I used that to be able to do the loops and to be able to run through. And then like the next year, of course, I wanted to evolve that, and we had this big like stage set up, and we had this big like projection like thing in front of the stage, and I did this big like horror like haunted house type of deal where it looked like the stage was like a house, and it had all these like spooky visuals playing through Resolume on the bottom. And then that kind of just snowballed. I realized like, holy shit, this is cool. I like messing around with visuals, and I like started learning how to like make my own visuals, and like basically just kind of snowballed into that. And that's kind of how I got going, man. Like it's interesting. And like now like I said, like the music never felt like it flowed out of me, and now like I really can like sit here and like if I have something in my head, I can like, okay, I'll figure out the nodes and figure out the math how to make it happen. And it's pretty dope. It's cool. That's awesome, man.
It's very rewarding.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I definitely want to hear more about like your kind of discovering visuals and getting into it, because it sounds like a very kind of backwards, not in a bad way, but like kind of like by mistake almost, but just out of interest, like the music thing, do you have anybody in your family that's like that's creative or a musician, or was it kind of like just something that you wanted to you just liked playing music?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people in my family that are like musical, but not to like anything crazy by any means. I'm the only person in my family that's trying to make art for a living, which is not a bad thing. But
no, totally. Was it challenging to kind of like quote unquote like come out to your parents about it? Like was it like was it obvious to you from a young age that you wanted to do that?
I've always felt like I've always been the artistic type. Like I'm not really the type that's gonna follow along. Right? Like back then when I was doing that, I was a paralegal. I was working for a law firm. And like I hated it, man. Like I was writing legal documents. I did some cool stuff. Like we did a bunch of murder trials, and like
oh cool.
There was a while we were representing like every Phoenix police officer that like shot and killed somebody, and I was like writing legal documents for them. Like some heavy shit. And like I didn't like it, man. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to I didn't want to go down the traditional route. That like never felt like something. Were you
studying law?
No, not at all.
No, you were just like you're just like
I kind of another thing that I fell into. And I did actually. I went to school for film production, like when I was younger. Yeah, so nice. I guess I do kind of go to school for it a little bit. And I had odd jobs. I worked for American Idol for a while. I was running around production assisting, like traveling all across the country working for American Idol. I've worked on handfuls of movies and stuff.
That's awesome.
TV shows and all sorts of goofy stuff. And again, I didn't really want to move to LA. Like I kind of just wanted to like stay. And that legal thing, I just kind of fell into it. But yeah, and then a few like after that, as I was working there, I started, obviously going to festivals and going seeing all the big stuff, like traveling, following around Bass Nectar and following around all that kind of crew back in the day, and seeing like, seeing
what's
those visuals.
Possible.
Yeah, totally. And it's super like inspirational seeing, like, Datagramma and all those like original people, all the OGs, Jonathan Singer and all that shit. And and like, it always, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I could be a part of music and not have to, be a musician kind of thing.
I love that.
And
you kind of you just like I mean I totally relate to that. I had a very similar kind of experience of like I want to be part of the scene in some way, but I'm not musically inclined. I love that you managed to I love that one. That's cool. That's
that was a good one.
Some like face thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're mind ballooning me right now. It's super cool because it's like, you kind of got like an itch of creativity with your music and kind of like, okay, kind of got like a taste of it. Like this is what it feels like to express myself in some way. And then realize that like, okay, you want to pursue this as like more professionally or as a career. and kind of found your way into visuals. I mean, it's a very classic thing that you kind of see the greats and like, oh, I want to do that too. Same thing for me, for so many of us. And it's like, it's a great discovery, because it's like, it's such a massive world. Like VJing is like almost like a very small part of it, like the actual act of VJing is a very small part of like the visuals in general. You can be a producer, and you can you can be a designer, you could be a projection mapping expert or a technician, or there's so many different things inside of it. The actual VJing is like a very operational kind of thing. Definitely a very fun part of it for sure, but I feel like there's a lot of it's like once you understand what it is, it kind of opens your eyes to like, okay, there's a lot of things in here. So so I guess you kind of started getting into visuals from this Halloween thing, and then what was kind of some trajectory, like what was going on there, and how did you find your way into like learning the tools that you're learning?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously the natural progression is going from 2D to 3D, and Blender was free, so I just picked it up and started messing around with it, and making goofy stuff in there. And and I don't know, I mean, honestly, like, I've spent so much time in this program just like messing around with stuff and watching tutorials, watching Ducky tutorials, watching whatever tutorials to
Ducky
like
3D.
figure out how to make. Yeah, I would totally shout out. He's the man. And yeah, like it just kind of snowballed. Like it's always just been a hobby. I like eventually like got really good at Blender, and like now I have a full-time career, like doing like 3D renders and like motion graphics and design and stuff, and that's totally just like snowballed from me wanting to get better at what I'm doing, and like wanting to like be able to go to shows and like blow people's minds, and play all these local stuff and get wild. And now it's kind of like, it's crazy, it's snowballed into like this weekend I was at Tipper and Friends, and 5 or 6 of my visuals played with Void for Tipper, and that's like freaking out. It's still kind of bizarre, awesome. Like it's crazy.
That's awesome.
It really is bizarre, like saying feeling. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So okay, we're definitely like skipping through a whole lot of meaty stuff
totally.
Here.
Yeah, totally.
And I totally, it's totally fine. I was mentioning to you off screen that it was hard for me to find any information about you, so I'm trying to get it as we're going. So you kind of like, you're getting into, you're kind of like settling into the idea of becoming a VJ or making visuals. You go from 2D to 3D. What was like the, you mentioned After Effects. So were you fucking around with After Effects? Was it kind of like, were you getting bored of it? Was it kind of like, okay, you have a little bit of a film history, very similar to me. Also, I also have a film history, and that was kind of like what intrigued me about 3D was, it's like filmmaking, you can like move a camera and you have lighting and stuff.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
What was kind of, I mean, was there any like, I love this word catalyst. Was there any like catalyst that really shifted you from 2D to 3D?
I don't know if there was a catalyst per se. I would probably just say I just wanted to make cooler shit, to be honest with you, and like I'm a firm believer in like being a lifelong learner. I'm always learning how to do new stuff, and that's shows and like my visuals. I'm always trying to get better at develop a new system, develop something new, and I don't know if there was a catalyst. It kind of just snowballed into it. Like, I mean, if you go through my Instagram, Blender? You can go. How did I find Blender? It was free. That's how I found it.
There's like free 3D. That was it.
Yeah, like I've always like debated if I should move over to cinema or if I should move over to other stuff, and like I am so comfortable with Blender, and so maybe one day I'll move over. Like I see some of the artists that are working in that, and they create some really really cool stuff. So
I mean, Blender is the shit.
It's the shit, man. It's powerful. Nice. You got a Blender animation? Heck yeah. Dude, I love Blender. It's the best. Yeah.
It's the best.
It really is. But, of course, I've, trying to dabble in some Houdini too. I would love to be able to do some simulations like that. But again, like I feel like I'm at a point now where I can replicate some cool stuff in Blender where it
Of
looks like
course.
simulations. You know, it's not, I don't really mess with simulations too much, but like gotten to that point, you know.
I think especially since since like 3.5 or whatever, since GeoNodes came out,
Oh yeah.
it's been like a very different program. It was, you could get proceduralism to some degree with like modifiers, and there was a lot of like stacking going on, but
Yeah.
there was just that thing that was missing, was this kind of like workflow with with nodes, like a proper node workflow. And I think ever since they've done the GeoNodes, like there's like a whole program in Blender called Node Everything, or Everything Node, or something like that,
Yeah.
where they're trying to shift everything to be more node based, which I think is so smart. And it's like, like Blender, besides for being like an awesome program, is actually like an
Yeah.
amazing company. They're a foundation. They're non for profit.
Totally.
Totally open source. And it's like the fact that they've been around for like pretty much like almost 20 years, I think, like 15, 20 years, is insane, and have kept it up where they're like kind of competing with some of the best tools around, that are like expensive and hard bar of entry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you when you picked up Blender, but I Blender was also my first program, and
Yeah.
like picking it up, it was like, what is this? Why is this so annoying to use? And
Yeah.
then things start clicking like here and there, and then it's like, oh, this is like the shit. And now they've totally like overhauled it, where there is no kind of like moment where you're like, what is this thing? It's like a lot more intuitive, it's a lot more kind of like easy to flow.
Yeah, I've definitely dug through, like, I have all my project files saved, and I've gone to some of the early ones before GeoNodes. I'm just like, how the hell did I create some of this stuff about stacking all the modifiers? And like,
Nice.
Now it's so easy. Like I can just go in like, oh, I'm just going to instance on point and do this and do this and do this. And then,
For sure.
I'm good to go. And I create some crazy thing that would take me a day to try to figure out modifiers, or try to like, would just burn my computer up trying to process.
For sure. Or just like be
Yeah.
super frustrating to like, you break something and you can't go back, and like,
Oh, totally.
you've already accepted all the, or what is the word? You've applied all the modifiers and you can't go back.
Yeah. The non-destructive like factor of, GeoNodes is so sick, especially because like if I'm not feeling particularly creative or anything, like a lot of times if I don't have time, like on the weekends, I'll dig in and I'll usually build out completely new projects and start from, the default cube. And like, but a lot of times I'll take old node trees and just kind of take a chunk from this one and take a chunk from this one, and then move a few things around and like change the colors, and it'll be something completely different.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of a node system, is like you're building something that's alive in some way, or maybe alive is a stretch, but like, you're building something that is a system. You're building a system where if you're doing something destructive or a modifier stack, you could view it as a system where you can switch things in and out, but it's much more likely to break. Whereas nodes, like if you change the input, you're going to get something completely different because it's going to go through the whole system. It's just something super cool about that. And that's like, why I love, Touch Designer and real-time stuff, is like, because it's like the next level of that, where it's like, where it is alive, where it's not just that you can take a node graph and bring it somewhere else. It's also like, if you watch this node graph play out for an hour, it changes, like there's something, the generativeness about it, like changes everything. And I think that
I need to start messing with Touch Designer, man. I've kind of dug into it. I've done the intro tutorials. I kind of understand the basic concept of it. And it's node-based.
I think you would love it.
I really need to dig into that.
I think you would love it, and I think that this is not like a compliment. Your stuff is simple enough that the rendering power of Touch Designer would be good enough. Like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
I would say maybe you would want to go into like more of an Unreal space so that you can retain like some of the like really nice, like fine-tuned rendering. I'm assuming you're using cycles for most of this, right?
No, dude, I use Eevee exclusively.
Okay, well, there you go.
Isn't that crazy?
Then that is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
I use Eevee exclusively.
I mean,
there's a few.
Eevee is fucking amazing.
Yeah, there's a few that I use cycles for, but I like the ability to be able to just.
In that case, like then Touch Designer is, if not just as good, then just you can get it to look just as good as Eevee. For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. Yeah, I think you would really like it just because of like the, you know, I'm just like kind of scrolling through your stuff, but
Yeah.
just, you know, your the movement and
Uh-huh.
the feeling of it, your stuff is very generative. Like, and
Yeah.
like you said, you're using kind of generative tools like waves and things to
Mhm.
kind of move things. You know, that is, it's not simulation, but it is in
Yeah.
somewhat kind of the same way that you would do, you know, touch designer iterations
Oh,
and noise
totally.
patterns
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. And there's some incredible touch designer artists out there. And a lot of times I draw a lot of inspiration from like some of those artists, you know. And I think maybe that's why it kind of goes like that because I'm trying to figure out how to like replicate that in
For
something that I
sure. For
understand
sure.
without having to like, put my visuals down and disappear for 2 months
Right, and
and
figure it
like
out.
figure something
Yeah.
else out,
No, I totally understand
Yeah.
that. I mean, Pops is
Mhm.
coming soon too, which is like a totally new system in Touch Designer that's going to allow a more GPU based
Oh,
point
cool.
efficiency. Because right now, like
Okay.
you would have to do everything like through textures, so it would
Yeah.
be like kind of a little bit of a mind fuck to be like, okay, I'm iterating textures, you know. You would figure it out fast because you're in
Okay.
like a node based headspace,
Yeah.
but the pops are going to kind of, because if you use sops for this, which is like the surface operators, it
Yeah.
would be very slow, and pops are going to kind of change it.
Okay.
It's
Cool.
coming soon. Yeah, it's coming like next year. So I
Yeah.
think that would probably be the best time to jump into it, because also that's going to be a time where everybody's going to be taking a moment
Mhm.
to learn a new thing, and there'll probably be a lot of very interesting information coming out.
Nice.
Cool. So I definitely, you know, I love that you are a self-taught Blender user. Like I feel like those, you know, we are like a very distinct type of 3D user, because like there's the
Mhm.
self-taught cinema user, self-taught Houdini user, there's, you know, self-taught all over the place, but like Blender is one of those things that there's so much rich information available online for free
Oh, yeah.
that
Mhm.
you can really become like an advanced user very fast. Whereas like there's tutorials for cinema, there's tutorials for
Mhm.
Houdini, but you know, maybe it's like maybe, you know, a more like packaged one, or you know, it's like a course or something. With Blender, it's like there's hundreds of YouTube channels that deal with Blender, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
some of them are amazing. Like you know, we mentioned Ducky, Default Cube.
Yeah.
There's Ian Hubert, I think is his name, Hubert.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
so many, you know, like what's that guy that makes the plugins? Cullen. What's his
Yeah,
name?
yeah. Oh, he's so
The
good.
He's so
Yeah, I
good.
got his
He
book in
hasn't
here.
done anything for a
What is
while.
it?
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, he hasn't been around for a while. He made
yeah,
a few plugins and he made, like, a paid version of it, and then,
yeah. Bygen was
what was his
awesome. I love that one.
Yeah, Bigen.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, Bigen. There, I
what's his
just found
fucking
it.
name? With a C. I can't remember his name. It's Cullen something.
Caruano or something like that? Wasn't that it? Or
Maybe.
David? I don't know. Just Google it real
Anyway,
quick.
but my point being that like,
No,
you know, it's a very,
he's super good.
it's a very
Yeah.
easy system to pick up and do. Was, you
Mhm.
know, was it, you know, we kind of spoke a little bit about it, but was there a big learning curve for you to pick up Blender? You know, especially not having any background in 3D, did you have
Yeah.
to teach yourself like concepts and things like that?
Mhm.
You know, I'd
Um,
love to hear that.
yeah, I feel like a lot of the concepts kind of came, like naturally.
Hmm.
Like a lot of times, I find a tutorial that I have playlists of just hundreds and hundreds of tutorials that I've gone through and watched and, replicated and then like, changed the style and made a visual out of it. And like a lot of times, like I get to a point where I just get bored of whatever that is. And then I go to a new tutorial, try to find something else that's different, like, and it's kind of just been like a natural progression of that. And I'm still not, I'm not a master of Blender by any means. Like sometimes, I watch some of those tutorials where like they're going in and they're like, oh, you just do this and you just do this and you do the vector of this, and I'm just like, what? Like, like a lot of like, the math side of it is,
Hmm.
kind of just goes over my head. But when I like, when I see something that I really like, or like, I get this idea of like, I want to make something that's like similar to this,
Hmm.
or whatever, I want to make this like, reaction diffusion type of looking thing,
Hmm.
I'll dig through and try to find a tutorial to help me figure out how to do that, and then I'll apply it to everything else that I know. So like that's always been my favorite part, is like it's not like you have to know everything to be able to like make cool shit. It's like I have all these little pieces together, and then like when I learn something new, I'll be like, oh, I have this this concept of this, I can apply it to make this, and then I learn something new, and I already know how to do this concept. I can, add this little piece into this and make it this much cooler. It's always been something that's like, I have a puzzle in front of me and I'm just gaining new pieces to be able to like piece bigger pieces together. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Like
that's a really good way of expressing it.
Yeah, and it's so cool because like I'm still learning how to do stuff all the time. Like the way that I texture things is now, I feel like it's like such a part of like my style of visuals, and it was something that I just like randomly learned from a random visual. Like I use like ambient occlusion pretty much on everything. Like everything I use some form of ambient occlusion, and that just changed everything. And then like, I was watching a random tutorial and I figured out that waveforms, loop, and pi. I'm like, holy shit. Like I don't have to sit here and like try to like, figure out where the loop is, something random, I can just go pi times 2 and it loops. Like that blew my mind and changed my whole visual style, So there's always like little pieces of things that learn.
Little pieces, and you kind of pick them up along the way. So it is a lot of kind of like you're always learning something, which you kind of said at the beginning, which I love. How do you, for somebody who I guess maybe from your film school days, but like, did you, where did you kind of infuse this whole idea of lighting? You have a very distinct eye for lighting. I mean, again, I'm just going to show something here because I think that it's very, it's too good. It's too good. They can't show it. And I just like that one because of the depth of it. I mean, like, no, this is not a good example. I mean, like, just your eye for lighting. This is a great example because you kind of have, you just have this really good aesthetic for kind of the way that things are lit. And outside of that, you have a really good idea, an eye for composition. Maybe it's like more natural because it's like symmetrical and stuff. But I think that, sometimes the more simpler things, like symmetrical things, are even actually harder to composite because it's so, like the difference between 3 points, like in here, versus like a more, like in the background you have like a 6 point, is very different. So there's like a lot of things to kind of like pick up. Is it just natural for you to just kind of like understand these things?
I think so, man. Honestly, I don't know, because a lot of times I have like a kind of basic system like that I light things with, and like I've recently been trying to get into more camera movements and more like this one, like I want to this push in, and then no, you're good. And a lot of my lighting comes from my textures. Like I do a lot of like like slight emissive things on the like ambient occlusion. I'll add emission to it, so like it emits like from the inside of something.
That's cool.
Or like the closer something is together. Like this one is all texture. And again, like you said, when I do like that concept of like using wave patterns on top of textures to like change change like the roughness of it, adds a lot of lighting to it. Like this one, it's the same thing. I have the roughness like animating out on a wave pattern, and that kind of makes it look like light is shifting over it, but there's only maybe 2 or 3 lights in that system right there. Yeah, and the light will like refract as it moves across the pattern of whatever pattern I'm using it.
So it's like very subtle, like, kind of like shift in movement, but it's actually not even really moving.
Yeah, I think there was maybe 2 or 3 lights in that, a key light, and then maybe a backlight to make the back, that like out of focus stuff pop in the back.
Interesting. So it's really just like you're just playing with different techniques to kind of gain different types of lighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, again, it's a lot of times too, it's me just poking around in the dark. Just moving lights. Like, this looks cool. Oh, that's too bright. I'll move this over here.
That's like where the magic is, though. No, and that's like where the magic is always. It's like, the more you kind of fuck around with things and play with things, then the more you learn, and the more you kind of like, you get, like you said, you get these moments of like, okay, this patch is crazy. Like, this patch is amazing. And like the moment you change a little thing in it, it's like something completely different because it's so robust.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, I think the last visual that I posted, like, I think I posted it a week or 2 ago. If you go up, like, here, I'll show you, pop it up.
This one?
Yeah, that one. So I love this one. This one's nasty. I love that little swirl. Ooh, that one makes me feel good. But scroll down a little bit, go to like another visual, it's literally the same exact note tree. That yep,
Right.
that
Yeah,
one,
this one you can
not
kind of
that
tell,
one.
and not this one.
Yeah, like
Like
those top three are
these
all
top three.
basically the same exact node tree.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I like churn those out so quickly because I find some sort of system like that can create those. Those are, yeah, pretty much all the same exact
But
movements
the
with
difference
just
between them is
slight
crazy, huh? Like
variations.
it's
Oh
so
yeah,
it's a different
yeah. It
feeling and vibe.
you know, and sometimes I feel
Change the
bad. I'm like,
camera a
oh,
little bit.
am I just
Definitely,
regurgitating
definitely.
something? But like I create such wildly different things from these like similar concepts.
Yeah, I definitely don't think you
Like
should
it's
feel bad
super
about it.
cool. Yeah. No, I don't feel bad about it, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
feel like I
definitely.
should be doing something completely radically different,
Yeah,
but
it's like the
yeah,
imposter syndrome of like, oh, they're gonna know that I'm doing the same
yeah, no,
thing, and
totally,
but it's
yeah,
like, I mean,
totally.
like you could just
I've
see
gotten
this,
over
like
it,
it's
whatever.
so different, like they're
Oh,
so
totally, yeah.
not even like
But
this
yeah, that,
different. The color
mhm,
aesthetic maybe between this one and this one is the same, but like
yeah.
it's nothing else is the same. I mean, it's like totally different.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and
uh,
I'll break down that one for you guys,
oh, I
the
can't wait.
middle one. I really like
We're
that one, yeah.
we're definitely gonna
It's
get
so
into that
simple
soon.
too. It's such a simple one too.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that definitely intrigued me, and I definitely want to jump into this more after the set because it's a little bit more of like an
Mhm.
esoteric conversation. But you obviously, oh my god, excuse me. Whew, you obviously have a. My mind is ballooning.
Yep.
You obviously have a super strong
It's
aesthetic
such a stupid
for.
name, by the way. Just want me to
I
tell you
love
how
it.
that came up.
It's a great one.
Yeah,
Oh, I
so
definitely want to hear how you
back
came
in
up
the
with
day,
it. Yeah, how did you come
yeah,
up with it,
back in the
please?
day, I think I must have been like, early college or something. Me and my stepbrother, we just get high as shit and we would just like freestyle rap. And I remember one time, one of these raps that we came up with, my stepbrother was, get your mind balloon lifted. And it was like the whole catch of the freestyle. And for some reason that just stuck. And like, that's always just been something that's been hilarious in my head.
I
Like,
love
get
it.
your mind balloon lifted, and
I
that's
love
always that's how the whole name came.
it. That's awesome.
So silly.
That's a great origin story.
Yeah. Sorry,
So
continue.
speaking, no, no,
You were
this
asking
is
me something.
it's a definitely good segue. Another one of your aesthetics is like very psychedelic and very kind of like old school
Mm-hmm.
psychedelia, but kind of new school as well. Is this something that you pull from a lot from these experiences, and is it something that is kind of, and this is a hard question, but like is it something that's like just natural inside of you, like the aesthetic, or do you kind of like
Hmm.
try to recreate in some way things that you've experienced?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's definitely a little bit of both.
Mm,
A lot of like the color shifts that I like to do, like we're talking about the subtlety. I
mm-hmm,
do like a lot of my lights. I animate a lot of the colors in the lights because when on psychedelics you see things at a blue slow shift
mm-hmm,
to a green or slow
mm,
shift to like a lighter blue, and I try to replicate a lot of that stuff. And same with like a lot of like the fractal geometry and stuff.
mm-hmm,
And sometimes it's not. Sometimes I'm just like, oh shit, that looks cool, I'm gonna like this one that's playing behind me, those weird snake things going up. Like I definitely didn't see that in a trip, but like it just looked cool shit, and so I did it. But I a little bit of both. I definitely draw a lot of inspiration from journeys that I've been on. I
mm-hmm.
am definitely a psychonaut. I have a lot of fun with that stuff, and a lot more when I was younger, but I still dabble. Yeah, so yeah, like a lot of this, like again, like a lot of the subtlety that we're talking about. I, it's driven from a lot of those trips and a lot of those like not trying to blast off trips where I'm just taking a little bit here, a little bit there, and like trying to get things just like a
Mm.
little wonkier, and I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like one of those things that it's you either are consciously actively drawing from it, or just
Mhm.
because like you're a psychonaut, you're just like subconsciously kind of drawing from it, and also that aesthetic is kind of very pretty, and obviously
Yeah, for sure.
relates to
Yeah.
the music we listen to, and kind of like the
Mhm.
whole kind of genre of vibes that we're kind of part of in some way.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, super cool. I mean, I definitely want to. We're definitely going to get into your into your set in a moment. But before we get there, I want to talk to you just quickly about the lake holograms at Halloween.
Yeah,
Just give me a little bit about kind
that
of
was
like
cool.
what your role was there, kind of like
Yeah.
what you were doing there, and just a little bit about it. And I'm going to show a small video from it as well.
hmm Yeah, that was such a cool experience. Yeah, shout out JB. Justin, he's the director of Spirit Lake, like the art director of the whole situation. And I think he just found me on Instagram through one of my reels and reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I was just like, fuck yeah, of course I do. It's always been a festival that I've always wanted to go to. I've heard nothing but incredible things about that festival. And I already had a ticket to go this year because we were going
Oh,
out to see
nice,
Tipper and go see the Bobby and Cheese set. I was like, I'm not going to
nice.
miss that. And he reached out to me, and was like, hey, like, we're doing this lake hologram. Like, have you heard of it? I was like, yeah, of course. And he asked me if I want to be a part of it. And and I provided a whole bunch of content for him. I just dumped a bunch of stuff on him. I was like,
Mm.
bro, like, pick what you want. Like, there's so much stuff here. Like, here's all my new stuff. Here's everything. Like, and yeah, he put together the whole show. He was the one that edited everything, and they set up. I had nothing to do with like actually setting up the hologram or anything, but I like provided a bunch of content for it, and he edited together such a dope piece. And it was so cool being a part of that, like being a part of some of the artists that I've looked up to for like a long time, and yeah, and being able to go and like see it and experience that was such a cool experience. That was so dope. Like, I really want to go back. Like, I've developed that relationship with him. Like, JB's a homie now. We got to hang out with him, and he kind of took me around and showed me the whole like control room where all the projectors are around there and stuff. And yeah, super duper cool dude. Like, that was an incredible experience. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
the place was
Did
wild.
you
Yeah,
did they show you a little bit how they do it?
yeah. So it's I know they just have like the big fountain. If you've ever been to like Disneyland or like how they
Mm-hmm.
have the big like lake show, like it's just a big spread out fountain, and they just project from the rear, which is something that kind of blew my mind. If you walk around to the back of it, where like the projector's coming from, you don't see any image. And like
Mm.
that, I was like, really? That's weird, because apparently the water like pulls the light through, and that's what you're actually seeing is the
Wow.
light refracting through the water.
Sick.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, they just have powerful big ass laser projector that they shoot through it, and then just line everything up, and it's simple as that. um but yeah, it looks so cool. Like, he wanted to like content that had a lot of black in it, so
Mm.
you can kind of see the
Contrast.
emptiness.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he was saying that he even like crunched everything down a little bit, added some contrast to it so it like pops a little bit more. um but yeah, like, it looks so cool, man. This one right here, like that one playing, it was like,
Mm.
and I had a lot of content for him because the whole theme of it was what was the name of it? I forgot. It was like what's below or something like that. I forgot the name of it off the top of my
Okay.
head, but it was like the concept of like coming out of the lake, like what's inside of the lake. So I like
Mm.
sent all my tentacle stuff to him, all my like weird,
Nice.
tentacly earthly kind of stuff, like that's coming
The
out of
the
the water. And
reflections are so cool, The
oh
reflections are so
yeah.
cool.
I think there's one. Yeah, that one looks so sick. That one looks so cool with the reflections coming off. And yeah, I remember like the first time I walked in there and saw it, we kind of waited a little bit, and I pulled up with like 10 of my best friends. It was literally just like such a powerful moment. He had like its Radiohead song playing, and like Radiohead's one of my all-time favorite bands. It was just so
Nice.
powerful. I'm just like, look
Hell
at my
yeah.
friends, and I'm crying, and like
Oh,
it was so dope. Yeah, it
that's
was so
awesome, dude.
cool. Yeah.
Um, how long have you been making visuals for?
It's been about 6-7 years now, I think,
Okay.
maybe a little bit longer.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Can you put your finger on when you started to get noticed on Instagram?
Yeah, it's actually been probably the past year and a half, a little bit. I
Mm.
mean, I've played all sorts of local shows, VJing back in the day,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
playing clubs, playing, all this stuff. And in Phoenix, like, I'm a big bass head. I love bass music. I mean, that's like, I just love that kind of aesthetic of it. And a lot of my music or a lot of my visuals are, with the intention of like, being just kind of weird, wonky kind of bass music.
Mm-hmm.
And like now we do, but like back in the day we didn't really have a scene for that here. It was
Mm-hmm.
all house music, and it was all
Mm.
like techno and stuff like
Mainstream.
that,
Yeah.
very mainstream stuff. And I played a lot of shows, like clubs, doing all that stuff for like all sorts of those types of artists. And I just got kind of sick of it, honestly. Like, so about a year and a half ago, like, or actually probably like around COVID, so maybe a little longer than that, I was basically like, yeah, I'm not going to go sit in a club anymore. I'm not going to go sit in a corner somewhere and not get any recognition and play some, some random visuals for like some club, like, and I just started hitting Blender hard. I was like, whatever, like, I'm going to get,
just gonna make
like,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. I'm just going to make stuff and I'm just going to be undeniable. And that's kind of what I was going for, and over this past year, like it's been interesting, getting more of a following, having reels, reach 500,000 views, which is still, crazy to me.
That's
And
awesome.
like, I feel like that is kind of the route that I wanted to go, instead of just like, playing these clubs and like, trying to get like go the VJ route and go play these, raves and stuff. Like, just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make dope ass shit and hopefully someone sees it. And yeah, now that I'm at the point, like, I'm actually getting recognition, like, it was about a year ago, I believe. Ellis Dream followed me, reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to make some visuals for them, and like, bought a whole bunch of my visuals for his last tour. And
Yeah,
then
I
they
saw
looped
that
back
on your
around.
Instagram.
Yeah, they looped back around and bought some for like the LSD
That's fucking
project and used
awesome.
some of that, which was super dope.
That's awesome.
That's what I bought this beefy computer over here with. That
Hell
money
yeah.
that I made from that first sale.
Hell
So yeah.
Was that this year?
No, I think that was last year. That was like towards the end of last year.
Nice.
When he reached out. Yeah.
It's awesome. So they just bought like a bunch
crazy.
of loops from you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
That's
I sent them a folder of like, here, pick and choose kind of thing, and he went through and screenshotted everything. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a super nice dude. Nice. Yeah, shout out. He's super dope.
Well, I mean, I'm super, not proud is not the right word, but I mean, I'm super happy for you. That you're getting the recognition that you deserve, and kind of like finding your audience and being able to see your work in the wild at the places that you kind of wanted to see them. I think it's you deserve it, and it's great to see it.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we get all choked up here, let's jump into your set.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Luke, so we're going to jump right into it, see what you have ready for us. I'm super, super excited to see, and take it away. And I might jump in here and there. And
cool. Yeah,
for anybody,
please pop in, ask questions, man, because I can sometimes just talk over stuff, and then you're like, oh, wait, pause for a sec. Let's talk about that more. So please do.
And for anybody who is listening in audio or watching, stick around after the set, because we're going to have a second part of the interview as well. All right, take it away, Luke.
All right. Okay, cool. All right, so let's dig into something. So let's do this one. This is a good one.
Ooh, so exciting.
Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. Let me see. We got to boom. Let's open that up. Okay. So yeah, I like this one a lot. Ooh, that one's dirty. Okay, so this one, let's see if I can find the render real quick so I can show you guys the high quality of it. Where is it? Is that it? No. Sorry, I got a lot of stuff in here. It doesn't matter. You get the concept of it. So yeah, that's what it looks like. That's a really cool piece.
Nice.
So
this is the Bridgekey cube.
One. Yeah, they're Menger sponges, I think is what
Menger sponges. Yeah, sorry. It's a Bridgekey.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, how I created this one, it's interesting. I like to do this a lot. How to create, like, how there's this complex geometry inside of itself. Because if we just take a cube, the geometry is just going to be on the outside of the cube. And like, to be able to create something that has like depth and geometry, what I like doing is taking a cube and like turning it into a volume and then converting that volume into a mesh. I love doing that so much, because then you can kind of mess with the density. I can like really screw with how dense I want it, how much actual geometry that's inside of it, how many cubes, like so forth. Yeah.
You mean like, so
that's how
the volume that you're iterating into?
Yeah. So basically I'm taking the cube, turning that cube into a volume, and then turning that volume back into a mesh, so it takes all the points of that volume, and then I can instance something else on those points. Yeah,
so instead of it just being on the outside or on the surface kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it has like geometry on the inside of it.
Interesting.
Which is, I love doing that. A lot of my stuff has that. And so what I like to do a lot is like to add movement. There's a few different ways you can do it. I there's this node pack that I bought called Higsass nodes, and his stuff is so good. I actually learned so much from this node pack. So yeah, look that up. Higsass. It's Higsass, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His pack is absolutely insane. I use his mirror a lot, and I use his displace a lot. I mean, there's so many nodes into that, but these are like the two that I use the most. And this displace is super nice. I mean, basically what it is it's just like a set position that I can plug a texture into. And there's ways to
Oh.
do that. Like before I had this node pack, I would take a set position, and then I would do the same thing. I can put like a wave texture or something on it. And this is another one that he has that's really good. This loop noise texture, which I don't really use too much anymore. A lot of times I'll just use wave textures.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little too big. Oops. Maybe that's why I didn't use wave texture on this one for some reason.
It doesn't work with it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was the factor. There we go. So yeah, this is another thing that I used to be able to do that I used to did by myself. It's basically just two noise textures that are mirrored, and then you loop one into the other as the one comes out, and it creates like a loop noise
That's
texture.
so cool. Is that how you would?
But
That's how you would loop things in the past.
yeah, that's how I would do it before I download this pack. Now I use wave textures for pretty much everything,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of using like a looped like a noise texture, I take a wave texture and I just add a whole bunch of distortion to it, and that basically becomes noise
The
texture.
noise,
If I want to
But
get something that's like more organic,
we can like play it from like beginning to end kind of thing.
Correct.
Or you use the
correct.
pie thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so actually I did another so I could have added another one of these displaces, but this is how I used to do it. I would use set positions. I would add like a vector rotate to it, and then I would take the angle of that with a wave texture, and then this wave texture is basically just kind of moves things around like that, like super slowly. Yeah, and again, biggest thing that blew my mind, wave textures loop in increments of pi. So 0, if I do pi times 100, that'll be exactly the same. Pi times 8 will be exactly the same.
Which
So
be 8
I can
loops
take
of it
0.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I take 0, you just go to the end, and that's just pi times 2, just 6.283, so forth.
Yeah.
And that creates that slow loop pattern.
Interesting.
Yeah, which just adds more movement. And
Is
I like sometimes I'll do this like 4 or 5 times down the line, where I just create slightly different bigger loops that just add more movement. One will go positive 4 loops, one will go negative 2 loops, and then it creates this really cool like organic movement that's like working against itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how I get a lot of my movement. Wave textures are my best friend. They are so sick. Yeah, so that's the same thing. So I took these points, the volume, the mesh, and then I instanced different cubes onto that point. In this one, I did a Menger sponge, which is pretty easy to make. Yeah, I think it's just, what is it, Shift A? Yeah, you can go into your mesh, and then if you add on extras.
Yeah.
Sponge. Yeah, Menger sponges, then you can change the level. Like, those are really fun to mess with. So yeah, I just took one of those and just instanced it on those points. And then the rotation, same exact concept. I used a wave pattern for it. So I took that rotation. I think I put it at a 45-degree angle, so it's kind of like angular like that. It's just something I like doing. Yeah. And then I took the scale, and same thing. The scale is just a wave pattern. I have it a little distorted, but if I take the distortion off, you can kind of see what's going on a little more. You can kind of see how it's just just scaling in and out, and same concept. I did 0 pi times negative 2, and then like I was saying before, like the interacting like wave patterns. I took another scale instance to do the same exact thing that I'm doing here, but instead of doing 0 to negative pi times 2. It's 0 to pi times 2.
So
So
other
that creates
direction.
like an opposite wave, and the wave is like slightly bigger than the other one. So like, yeah, the wave's slightly bigger. So when they kind of, one is slowly scaling out and the other one's
Mm-hmm.
slowly scaling in, but it creates this kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, it just creates like more depth to it, and I can
Question.
kind of bring in and out. Yeah, for sure. What's up?
I have a few, but just in my mind right now. Is a
Mhm.
wave texture like an LFO? Is it like is it literally like just a waveform? Like a,
Yeah, it
like a
is. I mean,
sine
you can
wave?
view it. Yeah, it's just a sine wave. I use sines mostly, but you can change them to like saw and
Okay.
triangle. It's a
Okay,
little
okay.
more jarring, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah, it
And
jumps, yeah.
I like using color ramps on them too, because
Right.
I can come in and like change it up a little bit. So now I
Mm.
like everything doesn't scale down all the way, so you can still
Right.
kind of see
You're like
what's.
mathing it. You're giving it like
Yeah,
a zero instead of
exactly.
0 to 1, it's
Yeah,
something else to 1.
correct. Yeah. Um, and like I can also change like how deep the wave is, or like if I
Mhm.
want it to be like a little bit bigger of a wave.
Mhm.
Like color ramps and wave textures together like are super powerful. You can do some crazy
For
stuff
sure.
with them. Yeah, I actually like that a lot, where it's just like you get a little bit of the cube coming in and it comes out, you know. And then this one I can make it so it completely goes away, so I have the reverse
Nice.
going completely away, but then there's still tiny little cubes kind of coming in on the background. Like,
Nice.
ooh, that's nasty. I like that. But yeah,
um
so yeah, I scaled it again, you know, one scale with the wave, 2 scale on the wave, and then set material. This is a node that's just so beneficial to me, and I feel like anybody that makes fractal art, um, again, Higgs made this one. I don't know, I all of his nodes, I've gone in and tried to like deconstruct them to like kind of understand what's going on. It's helped me a lot how to figure out how to like move things in ways that I want to move. But this one, I have no idea how the heck he did that. It does not make any sense to me. But like without that, that's what that looks like. Yeah,
Interesting.
which is still cool. Like I can definitely still do stuff with that. I've made cute, you know, I can bring these out. I can add more
Mhm.
geometry to it, you know, and that's still pretty dope,
Mhm.
you know. But having the ability to be able to just mirror like that, and again,
Yeah.
you can do this with modifiers. I can realize the instance, and then I can go into a modifier and add
Yeah,
a
but
mirror
then it's
modifier, you know.
right.
But yeah, that's usually super heavy on your computer, and it takes a lot of like processing power. Like the ability to be able to mirror in geometry nodes is super powerful, which I'm surprised
Mhm.
Blender doesn't have that, to be honest with you. I can
Mhm.
see this being something that they implement, you know, pretty soon. Hopefully, I don't know, but whatever. Go buy Hicks ass stuff. He's the man. um, so yeah, that's super cool to know, and that's basically that node. I'll break down the texture here, but in a nutshell, yeah, I just turn the cube into a volume back into a mesh, so I can get those internal points. I take some sort of like displacement, like whether it be like a set position animated to like a wave texture, or you know, this is
And the,
essentially like I could take this away and make this the same thing as this by like blowing it up, and like, you know,
mhm.
if I'm getting a little more detailed, like I can open stuff, like, you know, just kind of mess with stuff and make it like that. I
Mm.
don't need this node that I bought, you know.
Right.
It's
No, but
essentially
it
the
gives you
same thing as this.
more variations,
Correct, yeah, because it gives me the ability to like add
more
strength to
control.
it, and I can
Yeah.
change like, you know, the mid level of it, so it can like I can move up the center of the displacement.
Mm.
Yeah, so I really dig that displacement a lot. I use this a lot.
Can you
But yeah.
could you visualize the cube before it's being instanced, just out of interest to see how it's shifting? Maybe the volume
Oh,
of some site. Just like put points on it
for
instead
like
of cubes.
pass through this is what you're saying?
Yeah. Oh wow.
Ooh, interesting. That's kind of
Trippy.
cool. Yeah, that is cool. I wonder if oh yeah.
Because but it's not showing the volume, I guess, but it's still kind
Yeah,
of
yeah. I think, well, it's
interesting
not
to
showing the
see how it
volume
looks
because
like.
I turned it back into a
Oh, because you're turning
mesh.
back into a mesh, right?
Yeah, so I
Right.
went from a mesh to a volume. Yeah.
Interesting.
And that'll add like different. Yeah.
So trippy, huh? How like it's like such a
It's kind of
it.
cool.
I mean, they're both very abstract, but it's like one is like
Yeah.
very one is like more conglomerated, I guess, in some way.
Yeah,
Oh
let's
yeah,
see it
show it
with
with
the
the mirror.
mirror.
Yeah.
Whoops. I want to go here. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Some fleshy looking weird
Yeah,
thing.
can add the material back to it. Oh, there we go.
Oh
It's
wow,
kind of neat.
interesting.
I kind of like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, but all right. So
Sorry, I
let me
wanted to
dig
see what it
into it.
looked
No,
like.
you're good. You're good.
It's
No,
like a
you're
little bit of
good.
the
Please stop me
sausage.
anytime, man. Yeah. So this is actually a really cool texture. Um, let's see. Is this the right texture I have? Let me check.
It's almost like
Materials.
iridescent or somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of going for that like shimmer that you get on like those like beetles, those like cicada kind of beetles. That's kind of what I was going for a little
I love
bit.
that.
And I feel like I kind of nailed it. It's pretty sick. So yeah, again, like I know earlier I mentioned ambient occlusion is incredible for this kind of art because it basically like creates this. If you look closely, you'll see like the purples on the inside, and then it's like a slow gradient to the orange, and then like the greens and stuff that come through. And I can show that because like I can turn it down, and you can kind of see as I slowly it kind of pulls the color into it. Yeah, and like when you add the type of movements that I use on top of it, it really creates a really cool kind of shifting color pattern. And I use ambient occlusion a lot. And you can swap it so it's on the inside, like reverse the wave, and you can get some really cool kind of like corner stuff. That's like a good way if you're trying to like create like dirt on something, or trying to like create something that's metal that has like you can add like a noise texture map to like the ambient occlusion. You can like make it look like it's worn down on the side. That's how you do that. But yeah, and then I always add hue saturation just in case, like at the end, like I'm like, oh, I don't really like the color. Like that's what it initially was. And then I kind of pulled it away, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like those colors a little bit more. So I always add that, and then I can bump the saturation as well. And what I also like to do a lot too is that's what it originally would look like. I like to mix in just a little bit of white to kind of give it just, I don't know, it. Sometimes I'll mix in like a slight different color, just kind of, and then I can actually use these to animate these as well. So instead of doing like a full hue rotate, I can just kind of rotate from blue to yellow to blue, and it adds that like subtlety, that you get sometimes when you're tripping and looking at things. So that's a cool little tip that I like doing. So yeah, and here's the wave texture that I use on freaking everything. I have it mapped to the roughness, and I have it cranked up. I have it metal, so yeah, same thing. Color ramp, wave texture, looped in forms of pi. It looks like I looped it by 8, I think that is. And you can kind of see how that kind of grows out of it.
Damn, that's so cool.
Real nice.
It's like in the world.
Yeah, and like you have to be really subtle about it, because if you do it too much, or if you use blacks, like it'll just kind of take it away with the metal. Yeah. So like I like super to cool. Use like white, and then like just a little bit of pullback, just to kind of give it like a little bit of a metallic. It's
almost like a subsurface scattering in some way, like just kind of pops it a little bit, takes it away a little bit.
100%.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and it's like if you're looking at it, like you can't really see. It's kind of happening. It's kind of like imperceivable. The wave is kind of coming right here and coming out. But when I do it, wait, oh, it went away. That was actually imperceivable. There we go. Yeah, so like you can kind of see it coming out a little bit. You can tell something's happening to the color, but you're not sure. It kind of looks like light waves kind of moving along. But when I do it quick, wait, what the heck? Where'd it go? There we go. Yeah, when I do it quick, you can like actually see like how fast it's coming out, that's how much it's actually changing. But when it's like slowed down to the slow animation, it just kind of looks like a light shift kind of moving over it, which is super duper cool. Yeah. Nice. And I map that texture coordinates. One thing that I found that's kind of cool, if I map it, a lot of times I'll map it to the camera, just because it's easier to center it. Where's my camera? Why is my camera not moving? Oh, there it is. Oh, it's because I'm orthographic. Yeah, so like I map it to the camera, so when you move the camera, like the center of that wave will move with it. Because when you do it like on a like an object or something, it'll add it to like the individual object. Yeah, let's see.
Sick.
So yeah, so it's like added to like the individual objects instead of like the object as a whole. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's a better way to do that, but I like just either mapping it to the camera or the window. Um, and one thing I found that's pretty cool, a nice little tip, if it's negative 0.5 and these are all 1 on the scale, it's going to be perfectly centered. The
Huh.
circle will be perfectly centered. Yeah, which is cool.
Interesting.
I've always like at first I would always like try to figure this out. I try to like
Move it
scale
to the
it.
center.
Yeah, and like what I would do is like I would take this black and I would like map it to the color so I can like actually
Mm-hmm.
see what it
Mm-hmm.
was and then figure out like where in space that is. This one seems to be a little off. Oh, that's because I think the object, I moved it a little bit. It should be like there or something. But yeah, so like that's perfectly centered in screen, and I know like that'll do perfect loops, and I could do stuff like that and kind of perfectly loop it in and out on the texture. So yeah.
Sick.
Also, you can change like if I want to do bands across the top to like go like to the left or right, I can do that. I can also like I do this a lot. I'll add some like distortion, add some like detail to the scale, make it a little bit bigger, and that always kind of creates some cool stuff. Like usually I'll detail the heck out of it. Let's see. Yeah, you can add some like really cool texturing with like slow moving stuff over that. And I'm not always mapping to roughness. Sometimes I'll map to the metal, make it metallic, and then kind of make it reflective like that. And that can like create some really cool patterns where it looks like I'm like moving lights. Let's see if I move this back down. Move this back up. You do have to change the colors a little bit if you're going to the metal. And then let's go back to Z. So yeah, like again, like it can look like, probably make that a little bit bigger. Not that big. But yeah, you get the concept. Like it can kind of make it look like lights are shifting or moving, when in reality that's just the texture kind of moving along the roughness.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool. This one for my lights, let's see what I did for lights. Let's back out a little bit. Let's go back. There we go. So I think I didn't get too crazy with the lights. Let's turn this on. Yeah, so I got a light back there, I got a light up there, I got a light over there, and then I put a few points. Like, honestly, I think these lights up here are just overkill. I don't think those are actually doing anything. Let's see. Oh yeah, no, those are lighting it.
Oh, nice.
I always like to put I always like to put a light off to like the top right, especially if it's cubes. I like to kind of hit it from like the back angle. This one is coming from the left, giving it a little bit of fill. And then these lights, like what I'll do is I'll put a lot of lights kind of like on the inside. I try not to make like, so that one's like dead center, super subtle, but this light is actually
but it gives it like a really nice like fill light.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of and especially it plays with that with the roughness a lot too, because like light will refract different colors off of different colors according to like the roughness or like how metallic it is. So like this light it's barely on there, but you notice when I like shift colors around, you can kind of see that shifting just a little bit right there, like in the center.
So nice.
And that's you would not notice it, but it slowly shifts to like a peachish color and then slowly goes back to blue, slowly goes back to like a bluish color, and that kind of adds to that color shift, that like slightly light color shift that I just love so much. But yeah, that's a really cool piece. And then yeah, I render an Eevee. I'm all Eevee. Now we have ray tracing.
So you're just banging out renders.
Yeah, pretty much from here. This one has a little bit of camera movement. I think I did orthographic. Perspective would have looked kind of cool, but I like the way orthographic looked in this. A lot of these like movements, I use a lot of orthographic, and I'm just kind of slowly animating in, animating out a little bit.
Interesting.
So
are you using Eevee's path tracing or not yet?
Now I am. Yeah, absolutely. I love the ray tracing. Again, it's I still get the same concept with it. You can still see all the same light shifts and stuff, but there's a little bit, it adds like some nice like softness to it. Yeah, and I was really happy when they added this, because like I haven't always had this chunky of a computer. Like I can render things in cycles. and like now I can, but before I used to make, you know, up until a year ago, I was making everything on a laptop,
Oh
you know, and
wow.
I would make it and then I'd render and, you know, go about my day, come back hours later.
Hmm.
And like, oh, this turned out kind of cool. I got to re-render it. The shadow sucks. And, you know, but now I can, you know, it churns things pretty quickly. Like, let's see what this looks like. Oh, maybe not that quickly. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty
pretty
quick.
nice. Yeah, it's super quick. I bump up the resolution on my ray tracing to 1.1, as well as there, and then I usually do like 416 or 424, and then I don't really mess with anything else. You can turn up the precision a little bit. I've noticed that unless I have like a lot of reflections, the precision doesn't really matter too much.
Hmm.
Um, I have been having some issues with this ray tracing though. Like sometimes I get like a really bad flicker, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
annoying. And I think I saw someone talking about it, and they were saying that it's like if the lights are like off of screen, it sometimes messes with it,
No way.
especially if I
That's
use
weird.
yeah, which is weird. Like I think it's especially if I use where is it? Camera. Um, I don't remember what it was, but they were trying to explain it. So like and it's annoying. And like, a lot of times what happens if I'm getting flickering on some certain scene, I'll literally
Hmm.
just open up an old render a version of Blender and just render it without the ray tracing. But let me see if I
Nice.
can get like a yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can help me or someone reach out to me and tell me what the heck I'm doing. So yeah, here's a goofy one I made. But look at this flickering that I'm getting. Like I have no idea what that's from. Yeah, I really don't know. This
Uh,
is our
oh,
one of my
I
best
see it
friends, little
now.
stuffed animal Gerald.
Nice.
I love that visual. But yeah, I
Yeah, I
don't know
mean,
what
I
that's
I
from.
honestly don't see it on
Can't
the
figure it
stream. It's
out.
hard for me to see it.
Oh, really?
But
Okay. But yeah, there's like
flickering,
a
I mean, it might
slight
be
the
like a
shadows are like
shimmer. Yeah, the shadows just
yeah,
make
it's
must not be rendering properly.
I
Maybe
think
there's
that's
like
it.
a distance
Yeah.
situation. Like
Possibly.
you know,
Yeah.
it's not it's not like rendering it because it's too far away the light, or you know, it's like changing the quality of it as it gets further away or something like that. But
Yeah,
I have
it
no
could
idea.
be. Yeah, because a lot of it's like the shadow. It doesn't make a soft shadow. It's like hard, and
Yeah,
then it just like flickers. But
flickers in
I
and
don't know.
out. Yeah,
Whatever. I've been working around it. I feel like they fixed it a little bit more in like one of the newer updates. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure I'm behind. I'm on 4.2.1. I think I can update
I think we're
actually.
at 4.3, right?
Yeah, I think we
I
are at
think it's
4.3.
four
Dang.
three. Yeah, they
Yeah,
keep
I need
they're
to get on
like
that.
crazy fast with all the updates
Oh, I
all the
know
time.
it's the best.
It's
I
crazy.
know. I love watching those videos. They're like, "Oh, this is what you can do now," and I'm like, "Oh, let me go see
Yeah,
what I can do with that."
nice,
But yeah, so that's how I do a lot of these cubes. Here's some different angles of it. Like we got some.
super
It looks
cool.
pretty rad. Yeah, and I rotated the cube a little bit to like lean forward. That's my camera.
Hmm.
Yeah, see, I like kind of rotated it forward just to add like a different dimensionality to the cube. Otherwise, it would just be like that, and you know, world of a difference the way the light's hitting the cube like that.
Mm.
But yeah, okay, so that's that one. Let me open up another one for you. That
Sick.
one's
Thank you
fun.
for showing that. Super
Yeah,
nice.
totally, man. Totally. Let's see. Ooh, this one. This one's a nasty one. Let me see. All right. So yeah, this one really, really cool. It's like
Mm.
super organic. It kind of looks like a weird like rib cage kind of thing coming
Yeah,
out of this.
yeah, like some
Yeah, I really, really
Geiger-esque
like
kind of
this
vibe.
one. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and yeah, so this is the background. Again, this is like the same node tree. I just kind of instance on it. I'll get to that, but we'll start with this guy. So yeah. So a lot of my renders, I instance on point. Where is it? Yeah, instance on point it's a node that I use on everything. I love it. Like
Hmm.
whether I'm instancing cubes on points of of like volume clouds, or I'm taking in this instance I'm taking a circle, a curved
Hmm.
circle, and I'm instancing a spiral onto that curved circle. Um, so like those
Huh.
resolutions can
Spiral.
so basically you can that was like one thing that I realized that was super dope. I could take you know um and you can do it the other way around too. I can take a spiral and instance a curve circle on it, and that'll create something completely
Oh
different.
wow.
Oh, that's
Jesus.
insane.
Sick.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, so yeah, just taking the points of a circle with the resolution, and I can control the radius of the circles and
Hmm.
stuff. um And I'm kind of doing a very similar thing I did with the other one to like
Oh,
create
so
movement.
you're just sorry. I mean,
No, no,
I
please. Yeah,
because
please stop
sometimes
me.
it's hard to the geo
Yeah,
nodes, Blender nodes are very specific, but it's like so you're just instancing spirals on the points of a circle. Is that right? Like
essentially.
it's like this same thing you were doing
Yes,
before, but instead of a volume, you're just doing it on a circle. Um,
exactly. Yeah,
okay.
exactly. And of course, I
A
had to fine
spiral is a
tune
but
these
it's a curve, right?
numbers.
The spiral.
Yes. Yeah, it's a
So
curve. You don't
after that,
have
you're
to have
instancing.
geometry.
You're still
Yeah, you don't
instancing
have to
after
have
that.
geometry to instance. I turned the curve into a geometry.
Gotcha.
Where is it over here? With the curve to
Curve to
mesh.
mesh.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I thought it was just a lot of circles
Yeah,
instancing
no,
the
I do
points.
that a lot. I add a lot of circles, and that's how I get some of those like snaky things that I do. I use a very similar concept to this. I'll take like
Interesting. So
a,
it's literally
a
just
curve,
tubes, lots of tubes. You're
essentially.
just
Yeah, and
meshing
I'm
them.
taking
I
like,
love it.
yeah, so like I can like turn this way down, and you can kind of see. Wait, no, let's make this to like 5,
Hmm.
and weird. I'm getting some weird artifacting on there, but yeah, so like you can see
Oh,
where all of these cubes as I kind of
oh, that's
grow
a
it,
sick
they're just kind
animation
of
as it's
growing
growing
out.
in. That's a pretty sick.
That
That
is
would be
kind of
pretty
cool,
cool.
actually. That
It's
is
like
pretty
growing
cool.
outwards.
Yeah, I actually think I've done that before. But I did that growing animation, but instead of instancing, or instead of turning into a mesh, I took that
Hmm.
mesh and instanced cubes on that growth, and it made this like really cool snake
Gotcha.
animation that kind of came out. Yeah,
Hmm.
actually, I think the one behind me, I don't know if you have my camera still up. That's pretty much exactly how I did that one. But so yeah, so where were we? Spiral. Yeah, so I was
Nice.
instancing the curve on the spiral, and then I like to mess with the rotation a lot. Like rotation and scale is something big that I love messing with. And in this instance, I took the rotation and I took the curve tangent, which I'm not exactly sure what the curve tangent. I'm pretty sure it just like it like takes like the numbers of the curves or something. I don't know. So it's funny. I don't know what a lot of this stuff is, but I know what it does.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And once you learn
And
something, then it's kind of locked in, right? You don't necessarily have
100%.
to know how
Yeah,
it
I know
works.
that. Yeah, and I think you can also take the position of it, or you can
I
take
think the tangent is like you said. I
yeah,
think it's like the points across the thing, like the
across the
actual.
curve, right? It's like
I think so.
the I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
think what it is. Yeah.
um basically what it's doing is I'm rotating along the curve tangent, which is like,
Mhm.
the points along the curve.
Mhm.
Um and this I can like take it off and you can kind of see how much that adds. So basically I have like a rotation on it. It's a very slight rotation, but I can use like scale to kind of
Wow.
like move that around and like kind of,
So sick.
yeah, which is super cool. Actually, I think what you can, a lot of times I'll see if I can put a wave texture on it. Let's bring it way down. That doesn't work too much. Oh, that is kind of cool, actually. I don't know. So yeah, so that was how I kind of got this like exploding kind of like fractal out of it. And then the same thing with the scale. I took the index of that, and that kind of like gives me the ability to like grow the
Mm.
instances, which is something that I like to do a lot on these like spline monsters that I make. Um, and yeah,
Spline
and then another one,
monsters.
spline monsters. Yeah. Uh, I took so again, like I love just layering different waveforms and different like slight movements on top of each other because it like makes everything very organic.
Hmm.
Uh, Here's another thing I've been
Mm.
getting. I don't know if you can see it. I've been getting this weird like artifacting, and I just have to go like that, and it goes away. I don't
Mm.
know
I
what
mean,
that
Eevee,
is.
Eevee has a
Yeah,
lot of stuff. It's like one of those.
yeah.
It's
It's
experimental.
all
I mean, you
totally,
know,
yeah. And that's the cool thing about Blender is like, you know, they're just releasing all sorts of stuff, and it might be kind of buggy, but they'll figure it out, or you kind of
totally,
figure out ways around it. Like,
totally.
I don't mind
Yeah.
it. It gives
Click
it
it
the quirk of
twice.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just clicked off and clicked back, and then now it's like looking good again. But
Nice.
anyway, so yeah, this rotation's how I took. I only wanted it to rotate like along one axis,
Hmm.
and essentially what I'm doing is just animating um, a value onto like the rotation of it along the
Hmm.
z-axis. I mean, you can get basically the same thing by doing this, but this just kind of gave me a little bit more control doing it this way. And this was one that I thought looped in a looped in a in an instance of pi. But I think what I did with this one, so like if something like I know something loops, like I'm looking at this, I know if I go around, I can obviously tell that that's looping, and I need to try to
Mm-hmm.
find where that loop point is. What I
Mm.
like doing is like picking like a point. So say like this little curve right here. I'll like kind of like line it up with something that I see. Let's see. Or this was a good one right here. I'll line this point up with this, and then I can just kind of drag along and try to find the point where that exact piece comes back in. I think it's right there. Boom, there it is. And that's the loop. Let's see if it still loops. Boom, yeah, she still loops. So that's a neat little trick if you like can't figure out. That's what I used to do before I discovered that
Just
wave
find the
patterns
right
looping
frame.
by.
Yeah, it's like it's
Yeah,
almost
just
like
find that frame.
the A B in After Effects, you know, where you can kind of like see the
Exactly.
last and before.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what I did with that one. And honestly, I think I could have just put a wave pattern on here and it would have done the same concept, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I was just kind of messing around with Matt, trying to figure out like, you know, you can tell I was using the scene time initially to like try to make it, and that was way too much. But yeah, so that's just another rotation that just adds slight movement to it. And then what did I do? So yeah, here's that Higgs ass displacement node, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of cool. This kind of adds like a little bit of movement to it like that.
Nice.
And I just did like a very small
like a warbly noise or something
warp,
like that
yeah.
on the thing,
Which adds
on the
like just a
actual
little bit
curve.
of movement to the spine, yeah. And I had to realize that instance, because if I didn't realize it, I think it just like blows it way out of proportion.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'm pretty sure you'd need to instance to be able to convert it to a mesh. No, that might not be wrong. Or might not be right. I don't know. But yeah, so basically what I'm doing, I'm taking this displacement, again, looping pi onto it to add like a little bit of distortion.
Mm-hmm.
I made it more like a noise pattern as instead of a wave pattern, because that's just the wave pattern. It's kind of boring. So added a bunch of distortion to it, so it kind of creates more of like an organic movement. So that one's cool. Yeah, here's a cool little tip I like doing to set the curve radius to make it so it's like thick in certain parts and kind of like runs out like that. I'll do set curve radius and add a float curve to it, to the factor of the spline,
Mm. Oh,
or a spline
interesting.
parameter rather, and I map it to the factor. So then I can kind of take this and tell it like this is like the end of the curve, and this is the or this is the beginning of the curve. That's the end of the curve. So if I want it to be like super thick on the inside right there, I can bring that up way up, and then I can bring
Huh.
the end down so it kind of tapers off like that. And
That's
that creates like
sick.
a cool little thing. Yeah. And you can actually animate these too, which is cool. I can like set animation on these, or I can like animate the factor of it and stuff, and that kind of creates some cool movement. Like, yeah, which is neat. And then
That's
yeah,
really sick.
put that curve to the mesh, curve circle. That's just, you know, basically I'm just taking those splines, or rather those curves, and
Mm-hmm.
adding geometry to them, shading it smooth, and then this good old Higgs ass mirror. I've actually made a visual with this unmirrored, and that creates like a really cool kind of like conch shell thing. You can actually see where the spiral is coming from like up here, like where I created the spiral. You can actually see kind of how the spirals are coming out of the circle a little bit more. And then this mirror just boom.
So sick.
Super duper cool. Yeah, I like that one. And then yeah, so this back cube portion. Lately I've been trying to create like more complex stuff instead of just using like, you know, back in the day I would just like, oh yeah, this is cool, I'm gonna render this, and that would be a dope visual, but I like want to create something that's kind of more full. So I
Mm-hmm.
like adding stuff in the, like a lot of stuff in the background, and a lot of times I'll just create it in the same node. I'll straight up just like take this, duplicate it down, move, join the geometry, and then just mess
Mm-hmm.
with a few things and like completely change to make like a different aspect and like color it differently, and it
Right.
like creates a lot of the same movement and stuff. But this one, for some reason, I made a separate one with it, and it's literally the same exact concept, but instead of yeah, so the curve to mesh, that doesn't need to be there. Yeah, so instead of just going straight to the curve, because I can just go like that, and that's what that would look like. I took all of those points and I instanced cubes onto those points. And yeah, why is it doing that thing again? Boop, boop. There we go. But yeah, so that's the same concept, but instead of like jamming up, it's only like a 3 resolution spiral, so it's like a super small spiral. If I did it with like the hundreds of spirals, it would totally crash my computer. Yeah, so it's the same exact concept, but instead like bumping these down and taking those curves and instancing points onto those curves. Yeah, which is super duper rad. So let's check out this texture. I think this texture is actually pretty much the same concept as the other one.
I love the tiling of everything, like the tiling, say the layering of everything. Just having that, you know, the cubes in the back and just the squigglies. It's like just adds so much depth to it. You know, it's really nice.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. And I like using you can kind of see it a little bit better here. How it, yeah, that's that first part, and this is the second part back there.
So nice.
Yeah, super duper cool. I use orthographic cameras a lot. I just like the way that they create like the depth of it. Like you can get some really crazy depth of field with orthographic. And like you have to kind of, because like if you crank it down, you can get some crazy depth of field, and it like creates some like really cool like microscopic stuff.
Oh, like
yeah, those renders are cool.
What is it called?
Yeah.
Like not cell shaded, but it's like yeah. There's like, I guess that's more microscopic. I was thinking of like when you have the blur on the corner. You know, you have the blur on the top and blur on the bottom, and then it focuses and it makes it miniature.
Totally. Like where you're like when you do photography. Yeah, what's that called? I have an After Effects plugin that does that. But yeah, anyway, so I like using orthographic a lot because you can do it in perspective as well. Like you can crank it down, or you can crank the f-stop down. You can still get some like separation, but especially with these kind of cubes where I'm layering them, like just orthographic just goes really well with a lot of my
interesting
stuff.
I'm so like anti-orthographic just because of you know, projection mapping, and like I love to have that depth. But
totally. Yeah,
but there is like a huge benefit to orthographic for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I don't use it in everything, but it's definitely something that on every render I do, I'll be like, oh, how's this looking orthographic? And then you'll
check it out to see if it's like a thing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so this texture. Oh wait, it's, I don't think that's it. What is it? Sorry, I have an ultra wide screen and we kind of crunched it down a little bit, so I'm getting used to not having my full screen here across. Okay, yeah, it was this cube. Okay, so it's material one. All right, we're on the right one. So this one is super simple. I don't think I did any like animation coming off of it, but yeah, again, ambient occlusion. I have a hue saturation on here. And it's basically just like a rainbow texture, and I mixed in some white to give it, like that's what it would look like with the ambient occlusion without it. And sometimes it's like just too vibrant.
So different, huh? It's crazy.
Very different. Yeah, like see how it kind of creates it like a little bit more organic. It almost adds like a skin-like kind of texture to it, where you can kind of see like the white on top and the colors kind of coming through it, you know. Yeah, so that's how I did that one. Super simple.
Super cool.
Inside ambient occlusion.
I love how you're saying super simple as if it's super simple.
I mean, it is super simple. There's like 3 nodes in here. You know, I mean, it's a concept that probably took me a long time to figure out.
I was just gonna say, like, just the amount of nodes does not mean it's simple. It just means that
that's true.
You know,
that is a
now
good
that
point.
You figured it out, it's simple.
Yeah, but yeah, this is a really, really neat render. I think I changed it back to perspective. Yeah, orthographic. And yeah, let's see how this one looks. Let's just render a frame real quick. Boom. Yeah, that's really cool. It's like all that depth in there, all like these little veins coming off. I really like this one. Yeah. So that's how I made that guy. Let's see. Do you want me to break another one down? We ran out of time. What's going on?
Definitely.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely.
Let's do it. Let's see. Dude, I just got so many of these. Some of my old ones are just so goofy. Look at this little guy, little squishmallow. Let's see. Yeah, let's just open this recent one. Okay, so this is one I posted recently. Let's get some color in here. Yeah, this is a cool one. Yeah, that's a real cool one.
Nice.
So yeah, let's check it out. I think this is the same. If I'm taking a guess, this is exactly the same as I did.
As the we just
Yep.
the
I
one
took
before?
a cube, instance, turned it into a volume, turned it into a mesh, and then
Is it
yeah, so
mirrored?
it's kind of
Maybe it's
this
this is
one. No,
mirrored
this
in a
one actually
different.
is not mirrored. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, this one's not mirrored. I think the texture that I used to displace it, the wave texture, is let's crank this down. So yeah, that's what it looks like with like just the wave coming in and out of it with no displacement on the wave. But if you add some displacement to it, like it kind of creates that kind of weird wonky kind of on the outside. For some reason, when you do like small lines, you can't see it in the viewport. But here, I can open this render real quick. I think we can probably see it a little better. This is my files I need to convert. Yeah. So yeah, you can kind of see how the wave kind of grows out of it.
Interesting.
Pretty cool. I like that one a lot. Yeah, so it's similar concept as that one. This top part is all the background, and then this bottom part is all that main part. So the bottom part is same thing. I use that displacement mapped to a wave texture, an animated wave texture. The instance is just an icosphere. Just icosphere. I use I must have used a cube before because I have the rotation mapped, but you don't need to rotate a cube circle because you can't see it spinning. All right. And then same thing. I took the scale, animated.
But it's spinning. Maybe
That's true.
Maybe you want it to spin.
That's true. Yeah, because I can put a cube on here and completely change the. That's something that's super cool. It's a super cool little animation. And let's say I want to. This is a cool little trick that I like doing. How did I do it? I think it's just a color ramp. Rotate. Is it rotate vector? Yeah, rotate vector. And I can do the position, and then I can take a wave texture. Is that how I did it? No, that's not how I do it. Forget all that. Don't mind that. Let's just go back to the psychosphere. So so the same concept. I took the scale, animated it on this, and basically which is interesting because it kind of looks like it's moving up and down. Oh, you know how I did that? So I added a translate instance over here. So without that, it'll just be like growing and getting smaller along this wave pattern. But I did a translate instance to kind of pull it back a little bit after the fact. And that kind of creates like that kind of like pulsing up and down. That was kind of something that I stumbled upon. That's a really cool little trick that I use a lot too. And then set the material. That's super basic. Turn cube into a volume back into a mesh, displace the mesh and like a noise type of texture, and then instance icospheres onto that and animated the scale along a wave, and it creates that, which is cool.
Super sick.
This texture is a little bit different than a lot of textures that I do.
Okay.
I used instead of using like the camera it's the same concept though. Instead of using like the window where it animates along the entire texture, so you can kind of see that moving across. I did it on each of the objects, and I kind of eyeballed it so it's on the top, so each object is kind of morphing like that.
Ooh, that's super cool.
That's a really cool trick. It doesn't really work on cubes, but on
it works
circles,
on a circle. Yeah,
it looks real nice, especially when you have it like lined up with the camera. Because
are you pushing it into the roughness or the metallicness?
That is going into the metallic right now.
Metallic. So the roughness is
Yeah,
just at
and
100, and you're just like going back and forth.
yeah, like that. I wanted to create these like real soft kind of balls. I mean,
Yeah.
you can definitely bring it down and do it that way, or I can swap it over to the roughness, and I'm sure it'll create something that's pretty similar. Something completely different now. It's like metallic balls doing that. That's
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, it's just less
Yeah,
subtle, right? It's like more like
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
hmm And like
Interesting.
again, like if you're watching it here, you can definitely see something is happening, but it looks like
Definitely.
lighting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in fact it's actually the texture.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
that's a cool one. And then yeah,
Can
same
I
concept of
can
here.
I request
hmm
a project to see? I mean, I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What are
there's
you
a
looking
lot of
at?
them. Um,
Yeah.
there's two. There's three that I really am interested in. Um, let me show you. How do I? Or I could just go like this. 1 second. Make sure that this is here. Up. So this one I really
Which
like. I
one?
don't know why my screen
Oh yeah,
is like
I got
that.
you up on my list. Ooh, that one. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I can.
Or or this one.
Ooh, okay. That one is that one right there is that same concept that I did with
As we
the
just
other
saw,
one.
it's just with
Yeah, pretty
cubes.
much. Or the cube one that I did, the first
But there's
one.
just some. But there's
Same
just like
exact
this crazy
concept.
pattern here that's
Yeah.
like some
I animate instead
structural.
of
It's like
animating like circular. I think what I did was instead of starting with a cube, I started with a pyramid, and then I instanced the volume
oh,
inside of the pyramid, and that's what creates that kind of geometry
sir,
to it.
you are a smart
hmm
man. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. This one's different though. I guess this is just the texture
I
is just
think that
crazy,
one's
right?
different. Yeah, let me see if I can find it. I got so much shit in here.
This one's also cool.
Uh, Here it is.
Sorry
Hell,
for making a request.
no,
I'm
you're
just
good, dude.
I'm
No, I
just
love
like I
that, man.
really
I
want to
love
see it.
that. Yeah, this one I called Hell Tunnel. Dude, my names are so stupid.
Hell
Just like
tunnel.
the first thing that pops in my head. Okay, so yeah,
I
this one's
love it.
interesting actually. So that's what it looks like from the side,
Uh-huh.
which is actually pretty cool. Yeah, I think what I did with this one before I even break down, if I was gonna recreate this, because I might do it differently now. What I would do is I would create. Um, I would probably do a cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, where's the cylinder? Yeah, that's what I wanted. I would probably make a cylinder, um, and then I would go into like edit mode of the cylinder, and then I would like elongate it, and then I would add modifiers to like twist it, and then add a bunch of geometry to the side of it. Let's see. So I would like add a bunch of like stuff along the side here, and kind of just build it all up, like and then extend it out and make a long tube, and then do the same exact concept of what I would do before.
Interesting.
So let's see.
Well,
Let's
how
see
did
if
you
that's
do
what
it
I did.
in this way? Is this an older one or is
No, that's exactly what I did. Okay, cool. On point. So let me see. Let's see if I can find this cube. This is cube inside. Why am I not seeing it? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So yeah, it's exactly what I did. So I took a cylinder, I added a few deforms onto it, and just twisted those deforms. So basically that's all it's doing with the geometry. And then that creates a basic like tunnel form that heads down. And then here, let me make it a little bit easier to see. How many? Okay, yeah. So let's delete all of these and just show you one of them. Okay, so yeah, that's one tunnel right there. So I showed you that cylinder that I made before. I just twisted it so it kind of creates like a looping pattern down. And again, you can do this in geometry nodes, but it's just kind of quick way that if I wanted to make like a tunnel that kind of spins in on itself. So I was like, cool, I'm just gonna create a cylinder, make it actually spin in on itself with modifiers, just simple deforms. And then yeah, I subdivided a little bit to add some more geometry to it. But yeah, same thing. I took the displace. Again, you can do this, with the set position. And I did a spherical displacement on it. So that's kind of what it's looking like. It just kind of goes in and out. If I turn the scale off, it might be a little bit easier to see. Yeah, so it's basically just displacing along. Um, I use spherical. I think I can use Z or whatever axis. Yeah, so Y would be essentially the same. It's just displacing a wave along the long axis of whatever cylinder I created.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, added some distortion to kind of like make it kind of bubble in and out. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, and then I instanced some icospheres onto those points. I used that same concept where I'm taking a wave pattern and animating that wave pattern along, looping it into a certain form. This one I did pretty small, but I can go like, let's see, that's probably too small. Let's do that. Then you can kind of see where it's coming from. See how it kind of grows from the bottom, kind of goes in and out like that. So that's like the direction that it's going. Yeah, this one I made a little more chaotic. I do have another visual that I can open up that's the same concept that I had made like a little more flowy. It's kind of easier to see what's going on.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
I
and
want
let's
it
see.
all.
So yeah, then I
We
just
want
took
it
that
all.
same thing. I just duplicated it, dude. I just went like this, duplicated it, scaled it down a little bit, brought it back. And then, duplicated it again, scaled a little bit, brought it back, and just kind of made like a tunnel out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what all these little guys are. And I think most of this visual is in the texture.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a cool, yeah, let's see. Yeah. I wanted to create this like fire, kind of like hell kind of scape coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see how I did that. Okay, so this texture is just name material. Boom. Okay, so yeah, ambient occlusion. I mapped kind of like a fire kind of color going from darker red to going to white. Bump the saturation up. This is... where do I have emission on this one? Is there really no emission on this? There's got to be emission on this.
I mean...
Oh, you know what? That isn't an emission.
has
That's
a
just
subtle...
reflection.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that's reflection. So yeah, what I did was same concept that I did earlier with the mapping to the window or the camera, and it's just a wave texture. So if if I bring the distortion all the way down, yeah, see, look, it's the same concept, but a wave coming out.
Interesting. So cool.
But I just added a shit ton of distortion to it, so it kind of like waves out.
It's shifting
in
forward.
that pattern. Yeah, so it's shifting, and I have that mapped to the roughness. And I think where I'm getting that, so I'm dividing it. Oh yeah, there it is. So, oh wait, no, because I can just take this off and that does the same thing. Oh, kind of. Yeah, so I like doing mix shaders. It's really fun to kind of mess with like the exclusion and like, difference and kind of messing with these how colors kind of interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll use wave patterns to kind of make them interact with each other in interesting ways. But yeah, that's all this is. I'm taking like a brown, a black, and a white and just doing an animated texture over the top of this fire color. And the reflections of like the lights that I put down this tunnel are creating what it looks like as like fire coming out. Yeah, that one's really cool.
Super nice.
Yeah, super nice. Oh, sorry. That's again something that I completely stumbled upon, just messing around with stuff. And yeah, and it creates this kind of like really cool kind of cloud-like fire texture, with just using textures. Yeah,
interesting.
Super duper dope. Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Wow.
But here, let me find this other one.
Yeah, definitely. More.
Yeah, here it is. Actually, I pulled this one aside. I wanted to show you this one. So this is that same exact node tree.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact concept. I took the cylinder and just kind of morphed it. But instead of doing like that crazy fire thing, I added kind of like an underwater kind of thing. And this is doing exactly what you said that you noticed before. It's taking the roughness,
right,
and just kind of animating the roughness along
in the world.
Yeah,
it's so nice,
super nice and super juicy. And then this is the same exact. That's one thing. That's another thing, and these are kind of down. But this one, I think what I did was, instead of making it as stark of like a difference on the I see the color ramp is way black on that one, and this one I have it a little lighter, so it's a little more subtle. and it just kind of makes it pop out of the difference of it.
Nice.
Yeah, that one's really nice. But yeah, same concept. This one, this is the same exact note tree as this. This one's just displaced a little bit further. The strength is a little bit deeper. And this one, same exact thing, but the strength is super low. So if I bump that up, it'll make it like that, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
to get closer to each other, almost.
Exactly. Yeah, and like this one, I can take this one and, you know, bump this way down, and it'll just be basically the same thing as the other one. You know, coming in and out. Yeah.
Nice. I love it, dude. I mean, you know, I honestly, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm just like, we got to get you into like touch design or into Notch. You know, I mean, I personally love Unreal, but like,
yeah,
you would just fly. Like the second you would figure out how to make things loop, like, you know, generatively, instead of like with keyframes, you would just fucking go off. You know,
that's
because
the plan, man. Yeah.
Like you're already kind of like experimenting in real time with Eevee, but there's like a bar, there's like a, you know, there's a thin line. Like you're not fully getting the real time experience, you know, where I think that for somebody like you who's so playful and experimental, the real time is really going to allow you to like go to the next level with that.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to get the touch designer too for VJing as well. Like, you know, we haven't really talked about any of that setup. Maybe some other time, you know, have me on again in the future, and I can kind of show you how I tackle that whole aspect of like, you know, performing all this stuff.
Are you using touch designer already?
No. I want to. That's kind of
you want to.
Gotcha.
And
you know, like this weekend, you know, watching visual artists like, you know, Fractal Divisions, like him using Notch and like some of the shit that
never heard of him.
Fractal Divisions.
I'm joking.
Oh, dude.
Keith,
like, what? Are you kidding me?
No, Keith. He's one of my good friends. Dude, I'm just joking.
So good. I want to meet him so bad. Yeah, he's the man, dude. Some of that's the shit he was.
You don't want to meet him. Whatever. He's not such a nice guy.
No.
No, I'm joking. He's the shit. He's the shit. It's a running joke on the podcast.
I'm sure.
Keith, who's Keith? Yeah, Keith. Fractal Visions, never heard of him. I'm just joking.
He's so good, dude.
He's great.
Dude, he was doing some crazy shit on Saturday, man. Like he had this they had like the same kind of camera setup that like, you know, Pretty Lights uses, where it's like that move around. I don't know if you've seen that.
Of course.
Where where it like creates like the cubes out of the camera, and they can kind of like move the camera with it, the thing. But he had like these all these like question marks coming off of when Dave was scratching, and it was like he would scratch and there's all these like question marks coming off of him.
Cool.
Insane, dude. It was so sick. So sick. And I'm just like, I need to get a Notch license. I need to dig into touch designer, and I need to get some more generative stuff in there. Because I agree with you, man. A lot of my art is very like leaning that direction, and I've kind of figured out a way to like replicate it a little bit in Blender. But you know, like,
well, I mean, you can NDI out of Blender. There is an NDI plugin, so you can technically run. You know, if your computer can run it at 30 FPS in Eevee, you could technically, you know, just play your thing. The only thing is that when you start changing parameters in Blender in real time, it's not made for that. So there is like hitches and movements and things like that maybe are not like so desirable.
Of course.
You know, that's like kind of where it doesn't really make sense. Like maybe it makes sense in some way, like you might be able to build a system that would be more robust, but yeah, I mean, it's like, because you're already rendering in Eevee, I mean, your renders are pretty fast anyways, right? They're like, you know, a few minutes, you know, maybe like 10, 15 minutes if you're going crazy. But it's like the real beauty of real time, and I'm sure you've experienced this, is just the experimentation is instantaneous. So you get that instant feedback. And then you start thinking, okay, instead of me building the system in a linear way where I have like a wave moving in a loop, what if that wave is affected by the music? What if that wave is affected by a knob? What if that wave, you know, so kind of like instead of you experimenting in the moment of like, okay, what looks cool, you're actually controlling it in a way that like, oh, from 0 to 1, everything looks cool, and I can kind of dial it in. And then when you have that times 5 different parameters, 10 different parameters, you're starting to get into like a whole different world, which you are touching already when you're like, okay, I made this one system and I'm using it again and again in different ways. Imagine that one system was your scene, and then the 10 different ways that you're using it to render, you're just literally playing with live. Switch out a circle for a cube, switch out a circle for a thing, what, instead of a pyramid, I'm using a cube, and then, yeah, I mean, that's like what I loved when I was using Notch was just like, I could switch things out so fast and get like an instant thing. It's very fun. And because you already have an aesthetic for it and an eye for it, I think that you'll pick it up very fast, because it's just like shifting the mindset of like, okay, instead of animating this keyframe, I'm going to not animate, this keyframe. I'm going to put it on a continuous, or I'm going to put it on an LFO. And then what parameters are cool to fuck with. Those are the ones that you're going to control.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be digging into that. I mean, I have, and like I don't know why I haven't like gone down that rabbit hole. I think it's just
it's like you said, you got to find those 2 months that you're going to be able to just fuck off. But I feel like, no, please.
No, I was just gonna say, it's like, especially since like I'm just trying to grow my career. I would love to do this stuff full time. Like, I'd love to get to that point, and like, I just want to make as much content as I can to get my name out there as much as I can. And I always felt like, oh, if I just like disappear for a few months, like, I won't get the same kind of clicks and all that bullshit. So like,
no, it's a tough one.
Time, and that's definitely something that I'm going to do. You've inspired me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump into some things here, but thank you so much for sharing all your work. It's really awesome to see the intricacy and the simplicity kind of marrying each other, and the way that you found these techniques to kind of create these very super high octane visuals that are kind of like, you look at them and you're like, oh, I know how he does it, and then you're like, do I really know how he does it? And then to see how you do it is just really cool. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course, man.
And I'd like to extend the inspiration to, if you ever want to like learn or have any questions or anything, please just like feel free to reach out. That goes for anybody watching this as well. And don't be afraid of the clicks, like you have 12,000 followers. That's like very impressive. Once you get over like 10,000, it's kind of exponential at that point. So, don't be afraid of that. Like, fuck that. Anyways, it's such bullshit, like it's.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I feel
it's important bullshit, but it's still bullshit, like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you definitely sink into it. Like,
oh, totally. Totally.
Wants people to look at my shit.
Yeah, of course. But the second you start, it's a catch-22 cat and mouse kind of thing. Like the second you start, like you're enjoying yourself now, so there is no like, you don't have to like change, right? You're enjoying yourself. You're not bored yet. But the moment you start doing new things, you're gonna start like, or I should say like this: the second you start performing more, or the second you have more opportunity to perform, then you're gonna not care as much about that because you're gonna be in front of audiences. So then, but to get to that, maybe what you need is to have that real-time generative edge of like, okay, you've seen all my visuals on Instagram and you've seen all my loops, but have you seen the live version of it? And like, don't get me wrong, like mixing in Resolume and you're doing your thing and you're kind of like playing with your loops, that's definitely going to be unique and it's going to be special. But like what I see for you is like, okay, your top 10 visuals on your Instagram, make those into generative scenes. Like you'll get booked right away because people are going to want to see that because you can only see it in a show.
For sure. Yeah.
My 2 cents. Okay, so one thing,
I appreciate that,
my 55 cents. What we haven't spoken about is your thriving career in VFX. And I kind of skipped over it before because I was just like a little bit interested in where you were coming from and what you were doing. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing in the VFX industry and kind of like what's your day to day with your job. Please give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, totally. It's something that I kind of fell into. I work for an e-bike company. I don't know if I'm going to say who they are just because I was talking about doing psychedelics and shit. And I don't know if I want to blast myself out like that. But
as if they don't know.
Yeah, no,
No, I'm joking.
exactly.
I'm joking.
But
I'm joking.
yeah. So yeah, I know they're all cool. They see the shit that I make. I'm like, hey, I'm going to Tipper this weekend. I'll be back
Like,
Monday or
okay.
probably Tuesday, but they know what the fuck I'm doing. But yeah, but yeah, it was something that I completely fell into, and it's been super beneficial, especially for my visuals, because I've like been able to dig into, Blender and After Effects and like actually do it professionally, where
Mm,
it's not something that I can just mess around with and kind of just something that just comes out of me, or whatever happens. It's
mhm,
like I have to have these clear cut. I need this product, I need it to look like this, and I need to figure out how to do that. And
mhm,
it's definitely like, bled a lot into my visuals. I've been doing that type of work, doing commercial work, doing, like I'll take products, whether it be like a bike or whatever, contract that they give me, and I'll like animate, and completely model like entire motors and do like motor explosions coming open and like sucking everything back together and doing that all
nice.
like, through geometry nodes. And yeah, it's been cool, man. It's been
You
it's
do
been
it
a journey. I've
procedurally
been
as well?
sometimes, yeah, I'll model everything, and then I'll take similar concepts and like like sometimes, yeah, I do that a lot. I don't do
So
full procedurally. I'm not quite that good with like modeling procedurally.
no, but I'm
I'll usually
saying like
model it
you're
and
when you have something like a motor explode, is that done in
then
geometry nodes?
yeah, I do that in geometry nodes a lot, just to be able to like
Hmm.
separate everything and bring it back together. I'll just
How?
make webs of different um like similar
You got to
concepts of
show
what
me
I'm
that at
doing.
some point.
Yeah, I like, instead of doing, instancing like cubes, I'll instance everything together and kind of piece it all together in geometry nodes, and then I'll use like, set positions to be able to pull everything apart and kind of bring it back
But how are
together.
you getting things to
Um,
be in the right place of the motor, let's say? You know what I mean? Like
oh,
let's say
I mean, it depends. It's like usually how I build out the motor. I'll bring everything in, and just kind of move it around. Like,
uh-huh.
if I just need like a certain like cog part together, I can just build it in geometry nodes real quick, and then I can have
Uh-huh.
those cogs separate, and then I can add the casing on the
Gotcha.
outside, and then animate the casing with just like basic
Gotcha.
movements and stuff.
Wow, super
Yeah,
cool.
so it definitely makes things a lot, because it's helpful when I do it that way, especially because say I want something to change and I don't have everything hard coded. I can just like change
Right.
one little parameter, and I can
They must love you.
change the whole animation. Yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely love me. I mean, I at one point, the like how I fell into this was I was working, I was doing the legal stuff, and I like got a new job working for some like transcription company. I was managing all these private contractors for them, and hated my life. Like, just the work part of it, dude. Like a full remote, like I worked from home, and I would just doing all this work. And I had a buddy who was working at this like startup, and I found out that like starting customer service positions in this company was getting paid like 10 cents less than what I was doing, like
Oh my
delegating out
God.
thousands of hours of like insane high profile, like, trials and shit.
Yeah.
And I like, so I was like, fuck it. I quit that job, went and got a job at this company. And within a month, I started playing ping pong with like the head of marketing. He found out I was a visual artist, and he was like, dude, holy shit, you're really good. And he's like, we have a project, or they want to do like a motor explosion thing type of deal, or he wanted to like
Hmm.
model something. And I took it home over the weekend, took the model, took the entire thing apart, like the motor, pieced it all back together, built it all in Blender, and then like came back Monday with this insane render of this crazy, all these
Shit.
screws coming off and all this shit. Yeah. And then within a month, I had a full-time marketing, job there. And now it's developed into, I've been there for, three years now. And now my official title is like special effects artist. I'll do you know, all the things that we need for the videos, and all the motion graphics, and all the renders and stuff that we'll do, like the bikes and
Hmm.
various parts and different accessories and stuff that we sell. So yeah, it's pretty
That's
cool. It's a
awesome. It
dope
sounds like
company
a
to
really
work
fun
for.
job.
Yeah, it's a
And I'm
pretty
sure
cool job.
your portfolio is probably banging. So like the moment you want to like start freelancing, you could probably
Oh, for
just
sure.
dive
I
right
do a lot
into
of
it.
freelance. Yeah,
You
I'm
do
at
as
that
well.
point now. Yeah, I do a lot of freelance.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
Nice. They let you do
That's
that? That's
just like
awesome.
the main gig. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I do that like a lot in my spare time, and they're super flexible. Like, if I need to send, like,
It's like
hey,
performance based.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if I need to, hey, I need a week off of, I got booked on this festival somewhere, or I'm gonna go do something crazy, going to the Sphere for 4 days and then flying to Italy for something. Like I'm just gonna like
They're cool
they're
with it.
really
That's also, I mean,
super cool with
it's
it.
like
Yeah, they
for people like us, those are the best jobs. You can
yeah,
still,
for sure.
you have your stability, you have your paycheck. This is something that's new to me. I never had a job. And it is like a catch-22. It's not catch. It's like, it is like a throwing it up in the air. Like, and we're very lucky. Like we get to have a job where we get paid stability, but also they allow us to be flexible.
Yeah.
But I think like, good employers like realize that if they're going to hire like talent like that, or like people that are, very specific or really good at what they're doing, then they have to also allow them this freedom, because that's what made them so good or made them
Oh,
unique, is
absolutely.
like the fact that they
Yeah.
did that thing,
Oh, absolutely. I'd be gone in a heartbeat if I couldn't do this shit.
Yeah.
Like I'd be like, okay, this is more important to me. I'm sorry, guys. Like, sorry if my boss is watching. He supports me. He's probably gonna watch this shit.
Hell yeah.
What's up, dude?
Hi, Luke's boss.
Yep.
Thanks for keeping Luke busy while we get to
Yeah.
experience his fun visuals. That's so cool. So yeah, I mean that's like a really really good skill to have. Kind of like motion graphics slash VFX is like kind of good bread and butter to have. Especially in our works, when it comes to like psychedelic visuals, does not really pay the bills.
Yeah. Not
Unless
yet.
you're like,
I'm trying to get to that
not
point,
yet,
man.
unless you're like TAS, which
Yeah,
you
I
definitely can
know.
get there.
Yeah.
But even when you're at that level, there is other things that you kind of need to do. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to kind of go into even more esoteric, and this is maybe when Luke's boss should sign off. We kind of touched on it a little bit before about psychedelics and kind of like the idea of the psychedelic nature of things, and how things are kind of expressed. A lot of your stuff does invoke like kind of like an altered state, like a little bit of kind of not like found footage. I'd say it's a little bit more like crunchier and more like, trippy, but a lot of it does have like, these very beautiful like environments and like almost like crystallized kind of like feeling and, DMT-esque kind of like worlds. And I less about like, is it conscious or not conscious, just kind of like, what is your thought on this? Like, where would you like to take this conversation on altered
Yeah.
states and DMT,
Yeah,
etc.?
of course. Yeah, I mean, like I've been dabbling. For a long time, ever since I was like, senior in high school, I was eating fistfuls of mushrooms, trying to figure out where my brain goes.
Not
like
while he's working.
definitely not while I'm working, no. But it definitely, there was a point in my life in like my 20s where like I wanted to see how deep down that rabbit hole I can go, and I'm still finding that there's no end to it. That rabbit hole just keeps going and going and going, whatever substance that you're taking. But like I've always been fascinated with that idea of like capturing those moments. Like I've been like a lot of my visuals I do actually see in my head beforehand, and I want to create something with this certain movement or this certain like type of something that I've experienced, and I like replicate that. Like but yeah, man, like that's stuff like I do really enjoy it a lot. I have been pulling back, I feel like, the past few years.
As you
I'm
get
kind of at the
older,
point now where as you get older, it's like I kind of feel like I've learned a lot, or as much as I can from a lot of that. I still like DMT is a huge love of mine. Like I really love DMT. Actually, I just discovered I've just been doing a lot of 5-MeO DMT. Have you ever tried that before?
Frog
It's
venom.
interesting. Yeah, the frog venom.
Like in a ceremony or at like
no,
just like fun.
Well, I mean, I do it. I sit here in my room and I do it. Like I did it
Gotcha.
deep. Like I've gone into it, and it's been a really, really, really cool experience. I found out they make it in pens now, which is insane. Like, I didn't know you can get frog venom in pens, which is mind blowing. I didn't, but yeah. So that's been kind of an interesting trip. I've gone deep down that hole the past few months. But yeah, like again, like I think I honestly don't think my art would be what it is today if I didn't dabble in a lot of, a lot of that stuff when I was younger. It made me into the person I am today, like the caring, loving, thoughtful, introspective. I just want to learn shit. Like, I feel like I wasn't like that when I was younger before I started doing
Interesting.
psychedelics and kind of journeying into my mind.
Mm.
Hmm.
And what do you think these places are? Do you have any thoughts about it? Like, are you spiritual at all? Like, do you have some sort of, I mean, obviously we don't know, but like, do you have some sort
Yeah.
of idea or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do. I'm not really a spiritual person per se,
Hmm.
and not like religious sense,
Spiritual
but
adjacent.
yeah, I am. I definitely think that there's something to it. Like there's,
Hmm.
it's impossible to not think that there's something to it.
Right.
Whether it be that we're living in a simulation or whatever consciousness that we're tapping into. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I that's probably like the biggest reason why I keep finding myself wanting to dip my toes back into it because I'm just trying to figure that out.
Mm.
But I don't feel like we'll ever really figure that out.
No, I don't think you're supposed
Yeah,
to. I think that's kind of the point. You
yeah,
know, belief is like an energy. It's like something that you
mhm,
kind of just uh, in order to believe, you can't really have a proof of something, or in order to believe, you
yeah,
can't really have something be concrete. It's like a very it's like a the act of not know, or the act of believing is not knowing, I should say. So I think that's kind of like a thing, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting to always hear like people's opinions about it, especially if they're not quote unquote spiritual, which is like a very dirty
yeah,
word. I don't
mhm,
mean it like that. I mean it more of like, you know, kind of like, where am I going when I smoke DMT, or
yeah,
what is the function of a frog having venom that
mhm,
blasts you off into like a different altered space, like, and then again, like, especially yourself, like, you're actually bringing these things to 3D world, right? You're kind of bringing
mhm,
these 4 dimension, 5 dimension kind of like downloads that you're experiencing, subconscious or fully
mhm,
conscious, into our 3D dimension, where people that aren't in those experiences can experience them. Again, subconscious, like, conscious. It's like,
mhm,
it's irrelevant. If I watch something that you're making, there is an infusion of, whether it's the color, the motion, the theme, the feeling of some sort of, God is a big word, but like this kind of like expansive altered state,
mhm.
that some people would call godly, um, or whatever, spiritual. We can use the word spiritual.
Yeah,
It's maybe less scary than God, but
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I mean,
just
it's hard to say. I don't say that I don't believe. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I think
You
that's
know?
like that's a good thing
Yeah.
to do, because it's like, to say no is limiting, and to say I know is also limiting. So I think that, to kind of have some sort of to have some sort of like, to have like the wherewithal to admit that you don't know, I think is like a really good first step into like a spiritual ideal. Um, yeah, I mean, for myself, it's just like a matter of like, uh, it's a really matter of a belief system, like, kind of like what makes me feel good in that sense. And like, that's really what it comes down to when it comes to, for me, when it comes to belief and religion. It's like just a matter of like, does it make you feel good? Are you hurting anybody? If yes, and if no, then go for it. Like, there's nothing that's gonna be bad. It becomes bad when you have dogmas, and when you have like, black and white things, or when you're sure of something,
Mhm.
or when everybody else is wrong and you're right, and and then you're hurting other people,
Yeah.
and then in turn yourself. That's when it becomes dangerous. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. It's all love, man.
it's all
It's all
love,
love.
definitely.
Yeah, it's
It's all
all love,
love.
and that's something that psychedelics have definitely shown me is that whatever it is, it's all love. So
Hell yeah.
yeah,
Fuck
wish
yeah.
I was
That's
more
a good one.
articulate about it.
No,
But
I think
yeah,
you are. I also think
yeah,
that, this is like, I'm trying to not be as be pretentious, but like, I
mhm,
think you're also searching in some way, like,
yeah,
in a positive way. You even said it, like, right, you haven't reached the end of the rabbit hole, so you want to go down back to the rabbit hole. That's like literally that's literally a spiritual journey. Like it's not like, not to put anything on you or anything like that, but that's literally what it is, right? It's like,
Oh, of course.
I know there's something out there. I want to know more about it. I'm going to go and look for it. Right. And like part of that journey is realizing that you never find the thing, but the act of wanting to find it is the love, right? Is the kind of the light,
absolutely.
you know, in some esoteric way.
That. Heck yeah.
So,
I love that. Yeah, and I feel like, you know, like a lot of my lack to be able to articulate that, I articulate through my art, and that's kind of, you know,
100%.
I love that it flows out of me, you know, the things that I've seen and experienced, and, you know, like this one that just popped up. That was a crazy trip that I had. I was all these like molecules moving through and stuff, and I like, okay, I need to replicate that. Let's make it happen, and I figured out how to make it happen. You know.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, that is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so shifting a little bit, but kind of so relevant. As you know, you do VJ, so you have that kind of experience of like performing, and a lot of people play your visuals. You know, what is that feeling like? You know, you're obviously very enthralled by it, but is there any, it's not like a gotcha, but is there any like feelings of like, that should be me, or like, you know, why am I not doing it? Maybe that's not really where I wanted to go with it. It's more of like, I mean, like, let's be positive about it. How does it feel when other people play your visuals? Yeah. Like, you know, what is the experience there?
I see what you're getting at. I mean, I love it, man. I really do. Like, it's so cool just to be able to look around and see everybody experiencing and being like, oh shit, that's, you know, I did that. Like, look at that. That's so cool. You know, like, I love sharing clips, especially like I'm pretty selective of who I share my clips with. I'm not just like, you know, some dude reaches out to me and is like, hey, I want to play this in my club somewhere, you know, in some other wherever. And I usually say no, like, you know, I'm not selling my clips and stuff. But, you know, when someone reaches out to me, you know, like Void or Stephen Heyman or any of those guys, I'm like, yeah, here you go. Here, what do you want? Screenshot what you want. You know, I know you'll do sick shit with it, and I know I'll be able to experience it. And those connections only get me further of where I want to be. You know, like I've gotten a lot of gigs through people where I'm just like, hey, take these clips, like, you know, play them, like, you know, then they'll, you know, say, hey, this kid's sick, he's super nice, he's dope, like, you know, let's bring him on, let's see how he's good, you know.
Hell yeah.
And like,
it's awesome.
I slay, man. I do some cool shit. Like this summer I've been playing like my home festival. I've played a lot. A festival called June Jam. If you guys haven't heard about it, check it out. It's incredible festival. Definitely one of my favorite festivals. Yeah, check it out. It's in Flagstaff. One of our good buddies, Jerry, started it several years ago, and
nice.
This year I did like a 6-hour set. I did Skyja into Thrift Works, and then I did the Random Rab Dose Sunrise set, and that was so special. Nice. That was so sick. That was like a dream to do a Random Rab Sunrise set, and nice. That was super cool. And I've gotten a lot of stuff just from, you know, showing those artists. Like Skyja is a homie now. Tanner is like super nice dude. He asked me, I think January 10th, he asked me to VJ for him. He's doing a show with, it's here in Phoenix. Random Rab is playing with Jonathan Singer, and then it's going to be Skyja with me, which is going to be sick.
Yeah,
so
dude.
Get to open up for that. That's going to be a dope show.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and like a lot of things that I've, you know, shared clips with people have gotten me a lot of, you know, gigs and stuff. So not only is it
getting your stuff out there kind of thing.
Totally, yeah. And again, like, you know, I'm pretty selective of like where I send stuff, and because I know like I wanted to go to dope shit. I don't want it just playing in some club somewhere. Or like that's kind of why I don't really like have a big store of all my clips. Like I don't know if it's because I'm protective of it or
no, you're smart. You want to keep it to you want to keep it like, being protective is good. I'm sorry I phrased it in that way. I don't know. I guess I was kind of coming at it from like my own personal experience, you know, like I don't have anything to share with anybody. Sometimes I share like, you know, some notch scenes with Keith or Steven, but it's like there's like the element of like, are they going to do it right? Are they going to use it right? You know, but I feel like you're such a positive guy, and like you have this you have like a very easygoing attitude about you, and you have a very trusting attitude about you that I think that it almost like it makes sense for you to like, oh yeah, I love this guy, he's gonna do great with it, which is
totally.
Just pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I dig it. And like again, like it's so sick seeing where like, you know, this weekend like Void playing 4 or 5 of my clips for Tipper was just like such a dope moment for me. I was like, holy shit, that's insane. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like, oh my God. Like, so like, even if it's not me up there performing, like
Mm,
whatever, like we're all super good about tagging each other. And like, you know,
totally.
if a clip comes up, like, you know, they know like, oh yeah, that was my balloon shit, you know, and that's another
Right,
way
right.
for me
It's
to
not
get
like
my
they're
name out
not
there.
stealing your thunder or anything
No,
like that.
yeah, nobody, you know, and you
Yeah,
know, I feel like the people that I share it with are would never do that. You know, they're
yeah.
out there killing it just as much as any of us are. And
Hmm.
I have, you know, I have a lot of other people's clips too. Like there's a lot of other VJs where I'm like, hey, let's do a clip share, and you know, here's 20 clips, and they'll send me 20 clips, or you know,
Nice,
here's, you know, a folder, pick screenshot what you want, I'll send it to you. Like
nice.
happy to do that if it's being used for something dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That makes
So
sense. That makes sense.
yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, like, yeah, it's such a big part of our community is like the collaboration and the sharing aspect and the sharing information. You know, I think that that's really a big part of it. So it's great to see that you're kind of focusing on that. That kind of shifts me into another question I had for you for, you know, open source software. You kind of, you know, obviously you're using Blender. So like, you know, what is your take on the kind of idea of open source and, you know, do you have any like you know, doubts or grifts about it?
No, not really. I love it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't, you know, have open source stuff. If Blender, you know, was $400, $500, I may have never bought it, or I
Mm-hmm.
may have never dug in and kind of be able to make that art that I can make. So
Mm-hmm.
I think open source is important, man. I don't like gatekeeping anything. That's why I'm happy to open up
Mm-hmm.
my clips for you guys and be like, hey, this is exactly how I do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's how I learned. You know, I wouldn't have been able to figure out all this shit if someone else didn't do that for me. So I love it, man. I think it's really cool.
Nice.
Like, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
any specific channels you want to shout out, or like any like, you know, some introspection about how how you learned Blender from like zero to hero?
Yeah, yeah, honestly, I've watched everybody's. I've watched everybody's. Like, there's the ones that, you know, obviously pop in my head. You know, the duckies, the default cubes, all those.
Do
But
you? I remember
like,
Default Cube when he had ten
yeah.
thousand subscribers, and now he's like at
Oh
like a
yeah.
million. You know,
Oh
I
yeah. He's popping
watching that
off.
guy grow was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the man. I've learned a lot of crazy stuff from him, but also a lot of that his shit just goes right over my head.
Totally.
Like his stuff is crazy.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, like I get a lot of requests too for like making tutorials, and I've always kind of like shied away from it because I don't feel like I understand everything as much
Mm.
as a lot of those guys do. Um, and my TV, hold on, I just saw it's gonna turn itself off because I've been fixed it. Okay.
As the
Yeah,
peyote
so
comes on.
no, exactly. Oh, this is a cool clip. This was a clip that Bert Veracruz,
Nice.
super
Yeah.
talented artist.
Yeah, he's great.
He followed me like way early in my career, and I actually am. I take credit for getting him into Blender. We had conversations about
Nice.
it, and I was like, "Dude, just do it. Like, it's super easy. Here's
Nice.
some tutorials. Like, so check some shit out." And he
That's awesome.
slays, man. He's so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
he's
love him.
great.
But he did a competition, I think, or not a competition. He did like a request thing is like make some loop about like some sort of like, you know, spiritual like drug use or something like spiritual, like, you know, plant medicine like loop. And I think I made this
Yeah.
loop. This is all After Effects. Took a bunch of
Nice.
stuff. That's a really cool one that I like using a
Sick.
lot.
Love it.
um but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that,
No,
but
just
yeah,
like
there's
learning Blender.
yeah.
Like, what was kind of your machination? Just was it just like literally just like brute forcing watching tutorials? Was that just all it was?
No, not necessarily. I did watch. There was a time where I was only like watching like tutorials just to try to learn how to do everything. And
Mm-hmm.
after I got kind of the basics of what I was looking for, it was more like specific. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to figure out how to make like a DNA strand. So I like find some tutorial about a
Right.
DNA strand, and then from that concept, I understand how to like curve this, and then I take
Mm-hmm.
that and apply it to something else. You know, it wasn't like a linear process at all. And a
Right.
lot of it, like a lot of the stuff that I do and the stuff that I use, like I probably can't even recall where I learned it from. If I just like figured it out from this one tutorial. Like sometimes I'll watch a tutorial and I'll get one little aspect that I'll remember, you know, and it's like it's so hard to retain so much information. Like
For sure.
and yeah, and when I replicate it and do it in my own way is kind of how I learn, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I guarantee like that waveform thing, I must have seen that in tutorial somewhere. And I don't remember where I saw it, to be honest. How
um,
waves loop and pi, like that blew my mind.
and
Yeah.
shifting from I guess when geometry nodes came out, was it a
Mhm.
hard learning curve for you to get into the nodes? Because it's like you're
No.
not coming from a from a computer science
Yeah.
background or anything like that. Like
Mhm.
there is a logic to it. You just picked it up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I guess it just made sense to me. It was very daunting at first. Like my first node trees were nothing like they are today.
Right.
Um, but it's definitely like once I kind of grasped the concept of how like the workflow kind of goes through and got those like main nodes that I like, how to instance things and how to like, move objects the way I want them to move. And
Hmm.
it kind of just like clicked for me.
Yeah.
There's still so much I need to learn about it. Like
Well,
there's so much that all of us need to learn about it. Like,
totally.
and I feel like from those Higgs nodes, the ones that I use with the displace and the mirror and stuff,
Learned a
that
lot from
helped me
them.
a lot. I dug really deep into those and kind of like tried to figure out exactly how he made those systems and
Hmm.
how, you can take a set position and make it so I can affect it by a texture or affect it like, in certain
Yeah.
directions. That helped
Do
me
you
a lot in my
remember? Do you remember Sverchok?
Which one was he?
Sverchok, no, it
Uh,
was before geometry nodes. It was like maybe
okay.
right around geometry nodes. It was like a whole node based thing for like like Rhino and Grasshopper. They're like parametric design kind of softwares. So it
Oh,
was like kind
okay.
of this like parametric procedural bunch of
Uh-huh.
node family. It was right before geometry nodes came out. It was like this crazy like super intricate kind of like a parametric design thing. Excuse me. And then geometry nodes came out like maybe like a few months after it came out.
Uh-huh.
Sverchok, Sver Chalk. Yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's still I don't know
Okay.
if it still exists, but it definitely exists for like 3 point something.
Is it a
It
Blender
was
plugin
wild.
or is it its own like
Yeah, it's
program?
like a Blender. It's like no, it's an add-on for Blender. It's like
Oh,
it
interesting.
was like its own add-on. Blender is
Yeah.
just the shit. It just really
Yeah, I
is the
agree.
best. It's it's like it just has everything, and it's like all the
Yeah.
plugins, people making cool shit for it, the Python
Mhm.
integration. It's just so cool. Like you really can do anything in it. Um, Maybe not like as you know as dense as things that you can do in Houdini,
Mhm.
but Houdini is like a very specific tool, and to learn how to do anything in Houdini is going to take you a
Yeah.
lifetime,
Oh, of
whereas to
course.
learn how to
Yeah.
do anything in Blender might not. There's a less of a learning curve there.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever messed around with Cinema 4D at all, like compared to
I
Blender?
have a little
'Cause I've
bit. I
always,
have a little
yeah.
bit. Yeah,
Mhm.
not enough. Like I wouldn't call myself like
Okay.
an
Yeah.
advanced user. I'm like a very base user in the Cinema 4D. I just
Yeah.
it's a very different approach.
Of course. Yeah. Because I was
Yeah.
like this close to making the switch about a year ago. I was at a point where I was like, okay, like I can do some cool shit in Blender, but I feel like if I want to like take it to the next level, I want to use Cinema 4D. And like everybody that asked about it could never really give me like a
A good reason why.
distinct reason why I should switch
Yeah.
over. I mean, I know
I
their
think with
render engine
geometry
is slightly
nodes,
better,
there's really no
you
reason
know.
to. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, like even all the MoGraph stuff that they have in Cinema 4D, there's really good plugins for geometry nodes for that. If you want to like do exactly the same, like fields and stuff like that, there's
Oh yeah. Mhm.
JR MoGraph tools is one of them.
Yeah, yeah. I have his. I use that
Yeah, and
field sometime.
yeah, exactly, and you can actually make that shit yourself pretty easily in geometry
Yeah.
nodes. Like, there are some things in cinema that like are faster and easier to do, but when you consider Eevee as like a thing, and like when you look at
Yeah.
like Eevee versus Octane versus Redshift, it's like it's not even a
Mhm.
competition. Like it's just like it looks so good, so fast, and then the node based system is always going to be better than like menus and like
Yeah.
fucking tags and all that stupid thing that the way they do it in Cinema 4D, it's
Yeah.
like so stupid.
Sounds like
Like
you're talking shit a little bit.
I like to talk shit. No, I honestly I don't know it well enough to talk that much shit about it. But like whenever I see people use it, or whenever like I have to use it, like I have it on my computer,
Cool. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
but you know, because I need to open files sometimes, and there are
Sure.
like when you're going from Blender to Unreal, there are sometimes some gotchas that like just sometimes it's easier to open it up in Cinema 4D and export it from Cinema 4D. Just sometimes that happens. But yeah, I mean, it's like there's so many annoying things about it that are so antiquated that are like, we're in the freaking 2024, like you're still doing stupid shit like that, like backwards, like, you know, non-procedural, super destructive ways. Like I just don't get it.
Yeah, and there's so much more room for Blender to grow too. I feel just the way they
Totally.
develop it and the way it's open source. And
Open
like
source.
There's so many damn plugins. I mean, you know, I've spent so much money on plugins, but also like it's gotten me like anywhere that I want to go, as opposed to like this is kind of the box that we put you in, deal with it.
Totally.
You know,
I also guarantee you that the amount of money you spend on plugins is less than what you would have spent over a lifetime of subscription.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I'm sticking with Blender.
Well,
I'm gonna definitely gonna mess with Touch Designer, man. Houdini's been kind of on my mind though too. It's like I've dug into a lot of like, you know, tutorials about it, just kind of grasp the node-based system of it. It's very different than Blender, I can tell.
Very different.
But like the simulation aspect, you can do some really cool shit with Houdini.
I think like for Houdini, you would have to like Houdini, you would have to take off a few months. You know what I mean? Like that would be like, okay, I'm sitting every day. I'm going to learn the basics. I'm going to get to a point where I can like teach myself some things. That's going to take you a good few months, maybe, you know, plus minus whatever. For Touch Designer, I feel like it's something that you can really like have as a toy to like experiment, learn, like, you know, Touch Designer, you can spend a day, 2 days and learn the very, very basics. Like what is a top? What is a sop? What is a dat? What is a chop? And once you kind of get that, then the mind that you already utilize to build your geometry nodes are going to be, you're going to start feeling them out in Touch Designer. And then things are going to start clicking. And then once they start clicking, then it's just a game. You're just playing with it. You know what I mean? Whereas Houdini is like, it's a super dense like environment that you have to really, not Touch Designer is super dense as well, don't get me wrong. But if you're not using Touch Designer as a media server, you're not using it as like a coding environment, you're just using it to make pretty things, you can learn that pretty fast. Houdini is like, you know, I guess you could say the same for Houdini. If you're just using Houdini to like rig a model, let's say, then maybe you could learn that fast. But like Houdini is so much more than that, you know? And I think that, not to say don't learn Houdini, because also Houdini is like a good career path because people, like, if you're good at Houdini, you can get hired in a lot of places. And that kind of work is probably not going to be affected a lot by AI, which is kind of like the same argument for like real time and generative is like, you can't really emulate that with AI, right? Like maybe like simple motion graphic stuff like in Cinema 4D or geometry nodes, maybe that will be easy to do in AI, but like extremely dense simulations, extremely controllable simulations in Houdini, you know, very, very high octane looking kind of stuff is going to be difficult. And then real time reactive generative stuff is going to be hard to do as well. So I think those are like two different kind of sides of the spectrum, but those are like quote unquote safe, I think, or future proof in some way.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. Dope. Yeah. All right,
I just feel like Houdini might not.
I gotta download it. I know the basics. Like I've learned the basics of it 20 times, and then every time I'm just like,
for sure, you like forget. Well, because it's like Touch Designer is so specifically unique in terms of like nodes and like the way it like looks at things, which is kind of why I tell people like if you're interested in like node based you know, programming, then start with Touch Designer, because if you learn it, then you can pick up geometry nodes, you can pick up Houdini, you can pick up this, and it's going to be like, okay, I kind of get the concepts here. I think going from geometry nodes to Touch Designer, there might be a learning curve, but once you get it, then it will click. There will be a very distinct click for you, and then you'll just be running, you know. I would look into like, you know, Polyhop.
Yeah. I've watched a lot of his stuff,
Yeah. Polyhop would be very synonymous with you. He's actually coming on the show. I'm very excited.
Oh, really nice. Okay.
Polyhop, I think would be really good for you to like kind of get into his techniques. Look at what's his fucking name? I'll send you a list of people to look at after the podcast, because I'm gonna embarrass myself by not remembering the right people.
It's just so funny. You're like, I know this dude. I've been watching him for years. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's his fucking name? But yeah, I mean, it's I'm excited for where you're gonna go next, you know, and really like, I think don't take too much of what I say as like, you know, gospel. Like just do whatever feels good to you, you know, like.
Of course, yeah.
There's no right or wrong when it comes to learning new tools. I think it's like, you know, anything that you learn is gonna kind of help you excel and understand things in a deeper level for your own art.
Yeah, of course, and that's definitely the mentality every visual artist needs to take to heart. Is like you'll never stop learning shit.
Yeah.
It's like, and if you do,
Yeah.
it's, you know,
It's a
you
problem.
just need to grow, get better. Like there's always something more to learn. Then
Totally.
yeah, that's the mentality that you need to have for sure.
Well, Luke, this was a real pleasure. It was really nice getting to know you a little bit more and getting to
man.
see your workflow, and you're a super cool guy. Anything you want to leave with us before we get out of here?
I don't know, man. Just thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a big honor. Come on this. You know, it's rad, dude. Yeah, thanks for being interested in the shit that I make when I'm high in my bedroom. I appreciate it. I love it, dude. It's awesome.
Thanks for getting high in your bedroom.
Yep, you're welcome.
Wow, what an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Mantis Smash for the intro and outro music. Thank you to Sophie Holder for the amazing internship helping us with all the episodes. And thank you to the guests for coming on and spending time with us. See you next week.